What a weekend. What a weekend it was, and not all good. Welcome to the Monday edition of the Bill Michaels Show with oodles to talk about. Where do you begin? You know, Packers got a win, and it was ugly, but you know what? You take it. If we can look at brighter side stuff today, you can say, you know what? Good teams find ways to win ugly games. That was a dogfight. That was a dogfight against a third-string quarterback who did everything he could just to keep his team relevant. That was a dogfight with a head coach in Bill Belichick who has just got the capability to turn things on at the right time and make life difficult. That was a dogfight through errors, ineptitude, at times questionable play calling, both defensively and offensively. That was a special teams victory to where at least special teams, you can hold your head high. Mason Crosby can breathe a little. He gets a little, I don't want to say redemption, but for everybody who wanted to throw him out and off the bus last year, he comes back. And I had said last night during the Green and Gold postgame show, I said, if you just watch him, just watch Mason Crosby, and I watched him when he came out at halftime to kick just before the second half got underway. He was hitting about 52 yards towards that end zone. That was about his limit. 55-ish would have been about the max, but still, for Mason Crosby, it's not a bad way to go. So I thought, man, if they get within 52 or in, 45 and in would be better. I think they're going to win the game, and damned if they didn't, the Packers got to win. You win an ugly game. That's it is. It's just, it's ugly. There's nothing you can do about it. You grab it, you move on. The bottom line is you're 3-1. Are you playoff ready? Hell no. Hell's nah. But you win. In the meantime, the Brewers, we'll talk Brewers at some point. It's just every time the brass ring is right there in front of them, they don't catch it. Pardon the pun. They just have the opportunities, and it just goes by the wayside. And then we had talked about it. We had discussed it going back to the Washington State loss. And I had said at the time there was somebody that I had talked to that was pretty close to the organization. And I talked to him, and I said, hey, look, you know, what is the likelihood? Come on, you know, that Paul Chryst gets fired. And I was surprised that there was this timeline of consideration that, you know, a couple of years, this year and next, and see what happens and, you know, see if things progress. And then after Washington State, it was kind of like, you know, that may accelerate things. And I said, really, you know, yeah, losing to a team on the schedule that you booked thinking that was a warm-up game to get you into the Big Ten season, which was to get you ready for Ohio State. And then you talk about the development of Graham Mertz. This guy was a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school, and there has not been much development. To watch the team kind of steadily slide, and then to get boat raced by Ohio State. And I don't care what you said. Some people accepted it. I didn't, because you came out looking awful defensively and offensively. And defensively has been what's been carrying this team. You know, the tradition of, you know, really tough, hard-nosed defense, secondary play, hard hitting, you know, guys coming off the edge, corners, sacks, pressures, you know, stopping the run. And to watch them just get boat raced and have no answer in the trenches, they're getting their asses handed to them. And I'm thinking, this is not Wisconsin football. But, you know, it's Ohio State. It's Ohio State. So that's okay. No, it's not okay. If you want to talk about winning the Big Ten, that's not okay. So you got to bounce back. Character, you got to come back. And here comes Illinois. And you know you should beat Illinois. But what doubles down on this is the unthinkable. You know, Ben and I talked about it on Friday. I'm like, let's just take for if God himself comes down and coaches Illinois and plays for Illinois, and by the grace of God, Illinois wins this game, what's the mood going to be like? Oh, well, that's not going to happen. We talked about that possibility, but in the back of our minds, we're like, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And not only did you lose, you got humiliated by a bad football team and by Brett Bielema. And I had texted. We were traveling on Saturday, and then we got back to the Milwaukee area in Grafton, and Kristen and I went and saw her son play. And I got to be honest, I listened to part of the game. Well, by the way, coming up here in about 10 minutes, we got Matt LePay. I listened to part of the game, and I was like, wow, this is not good. And then I kind of shut it off. And a guy next to me sitting in the stands said, oh, my God, it's over. They got killed. And I texted my buddy right away, and I said, and all I got back was done, exclamation point. And I thought, I don't know if that game's going to be the difference. And damned if it wasn't. When you start looking like your team has said, you know what, to hell with this. All the talk about seniors stepping up, about not losing this, about character and getting back to Wisconsin football, lip service. That's all it was. Now, whether they have that capability, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But I do know that a different voice is now going to be leading that team. And maybe it was just time. Maybe it was just time. I don't necessarily buy the fact that anybody over the age of 50 can't relate to people today. Maybe just somebody over the age of 50 relates better. I mean, look at Nick Saban. Come on. He's over the age of 50. So that argument goes out the window. But if you suddenly start having guys in a locker room just go, yeah, nah, it happens. I have never, watching part of that replay, never heard the booing at Camp Randall like I heard on the television broadcast, the rebroadcast, because I DVR everything, on the television broadcast like I heard. And I went, oh, okay. Chris McIntosh is sitting up in his suite going, holy crap. This place is turned on them. We can't have this. We are a Big Ten football team. We should be the winners of the West. We should be representing in a Big Ten championship game. We should be competitive in a Big Ten championship game. We were ranked number 18 at the beginning of the year. We should be climbing, and instead, we're descending rapidly and embarrassingly. We're better than this. And when you start to say all those things, that means you have to make a move. And they did. Paul Chryst, very likable guy, had a lot of success in many different areas, but this was just not it. Paul Chryst out as the head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers. So before we get to Matt LePay, bring in Ben Kenny. And Ben, now you give me, as a guy that's there, you give me your perspective on this.
Goodness, a lot there. Number one, I mean, it's unprecedented. They fired a coach on October 2nd. It's the first time they fired a coach in forever, but to do it at this point begs the question of why now. I think the why, as you outlined, is very clear. Chris McIntosh didn't see Chryst as the long-term answer there. So why have some sort of a lame duck situation when you already thought about moving on? And obviously the loss to Illinois expedited those decisions. The question, though, is why now? And Jim Leonard is the name getting thrown out there. He's the interim now. I think he'll be the head coach. The rest of this season, to me, kind of feels like not an audition because the team is kind of dysfunctional, more of a trial run where Leonard sees if he's ready or if he even wants the job. And then if he's not ready, you are still in the running because of when you fired your coach to get some of the top guys, Lance Leipold, whoever else is on the market. I was floored that they actually did it, to be honest. Wisconsin is always a program that moves slowly, sometimes to a fault, and they fall behind at times. They are like, they ran up tempo offense on Sunday for the first time really ever. So I don't know really what to think. It's all about the next decisions are like, this is a seminal moment in the program's future history all of that, because college football is changing. They're bringing in a new voice. What avenue do they go down? How do they reconfigure the staff? Do you actually invest in the staff? Do you invest in recruiting? Do you invest in everything that you need to succeed in today's age? So it's not only about the name that's going to be up there. It's how does this program change this offseason and going forward to try to get better? Because right now they are on a really significant slide.
Yeah. I'm not sitting here and dancing on anybody's grave by any comparison. I'll tell you that. I look at this and say that it was time. The direction they were headed, it was time. You need to do something regarding recruiting and keeping up with the Joneses. You can't allow this to fall into the abyss. So and I'm sure Chris McIntosh, this, as he stated, this is not an easy decision by any stretch of the imagination. This was something that he probably took very seriously and just didn't really want to do, but felt it was necessary at the time. But it needed to be done. When I heard what happened, that they lost, and then I witnessed the game, I was just like, wow, that's it. The move had to be made. It reminded me very reminiscently of the Arizona game, and we're going to take a break here in a minute because we want to get to Matt LePay. The Arizona game when the Packers fired Mike McCarthy, where the Packers gave up. It was awful. They just gave up. And then you start to see empty seats inside Lambeau Field, and that's why Mark Murphy said, "You know what? We got to go. We got to do this now. We got to put this group out of their misery. We got to begin the rebuild immediately and get a jump start on this thing." I get it. It didn't make sense because you'd gone through the majority of the season. You only had a few games remaining, but I understand it. I understand it. You couldn't let this continue to linger. You still got too much season ahead of you. Let's do this. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, Matt LePay, the voice of the Wisconsin Badgers, who witnessed this entirety up close and personal. We're going to talk with him when we come back. Stay tuned. More of the Bill Michaels Show next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back to the program, the Bill Michaels Show. Good to have you on board today. A tough day after a rough weekend. Packers get by. It's a win. You take it, but not the style points you were kind of hoping for. In addition to that, the Brewers had an off weekend, and then you've got Matt LePay on the line to talk about what happened out at Camp Randall and the fact that the Wisconsin Badgers have decided to go in a different direction after Paul Chris. Matt now joining us on the hotline. Matt, how you been, buddy?
Good, Billy. Been a long time. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I mean, it's obviously a lot to talk about when it comes to the world of sports, but it's a tough day anytime you've got somebody that has really given their heart and soul to a program, no matter whether it's pro or college, but when they lose their job. And I like Paul Christ. I don't know what the message was or whether it was stale or what have you. You tell me what led up to this.
Yeah, it's hard to. I've told people this, Billy. It's hard for me to read the mind of Chris McIntosh. But knowing Mac from his playing days, and certainly knowing him as a senior staffer in the last 15 months as the athletics director, he's methodical in his decisions. He's much like his predecessor in that regard. You gather the information that you have, you make a decision, you move forward, and then. It just seems to me, and I couldn't tell you all the specifics, but the importance of football to this athletic department and most across the country, if you see slippage, you see yourself hitting into a danger zone, if that's what your belief is, then you make a change. And it's very un-Wisconsin-like to make it in the middle of the season, but it seems clear that Mac looks at it that the risk is greater in letting it ride through the rest of the season than it would be to making a move, particularly when there is someone on the staff who they feel very strongly about and who they think can be the guy that can at least guide them through the rest of this season, and Jim Leonard. And who knows, hopefully for many years to come. But first things first, they feel great about having someone like Jim on the staff. And maybe they could slow down what they see as a unfortunate trend with this team, not playing very good football, recruiting. If you depend on certain services, it seems to be a little bit of slippage. So worst case scenario for this program, or most, is to have football take a dive. And if they feel like that's in danger, then this is the move that they made.
Let's talk about Jim Leonard a minute. Obviously, his defenses, and I thought Kirk Herbstreit in the game against Ohio State had said it over and over again that his defenses have been in the top 5 pretty much since he had taken over, and we have seen some slippage in that area. Now, my question is, Jim Leonard goes from being a defensive coordinator to the head coach. Give me your thoughts on Jim and now wrapping his arms around an entire program rather than a defense.
Well, he is a wicked smart guy. First and foremost, he obviously was very athletic. You can't play in the league without the athletic ability. But 10 years in the NFL, walk on to an All-American here, undrafted to a respected 10-year vet in the NFL. You don't do that without having an incredible football acumen, which he has. We're all kind of curious as to how this will work on a game day. How much of a hand does he still have in the defense? Does he still coordinate it? Is there more delegating that goes on? How that works moving forward remains to be seen. But I do think, Bill, all these guys involved in the principals I've known since their playing days, and I have them all in very high regard, both professionally and personally. But I think Jim is a guy whose makeup, his ability to relate to today's players, he has a way about him that I think is really, really enticing. There's a reason why he's been a popular target of blue blood programs. Obviously, the Green Bay Packers were very, very interested in him being the defensive coordinator not that long ago. I think he is an incredibly smart, well-rounded guy who, in my opinion, has the chops to handle what there is to handle as a head coach as far as the outside stuff. He's good with people, good with the media, all of that, and however much you want to put on that and how important that is. To me, he has a really, really intriguing and promising makeup. Hasn't done this before, so you can't say for sure, but I like his chances of being really good at this.
Here's almost an unanswerable question, but I want to ask it anyway. Does this move get made if Jim Leonhard is not on staff?
I think, Billy, it's I don't want to say easier to make, but it's more manageable to make. If they, I have to think, and it's always dangerous to try to read someone's mind here. But if Chris McIntosh didn't believe there was someone on board right now who could handle choppy waters like this, then maybe it's a move you're more hesitant to make. But again, he is held in extremely high regard. Jim is. There is absolutely no question about that. Does that guarantee anything? Absolutely not. So I guess that's the best way I can answer that. That makes a very painful decision at least a little more manageable with the confidence that Mac and many others have in Jim Leonhard's capabilities.
What do you think happens with the staff that was just obtained by Paul Chryst and Chris McIntosh? Is everybody on a one-year review, or is this something that they feel confident in many other areas? They had just lost confidence in the head coach. Do you get the sense? Was there any infighting? Was there disagreements with this staff without getting into the specifics?
Not that I know of, Bill, but I'm not in those meetings, so I'm sure that in the course of any season, you're going to have heated discussions. If you're 2-3 or if you're 5-0, you're probably going to have some lively conversations on the staff. But I don't know of any great locker room divide or any coaching staff divide. I mean, look, there hasn't been an area where they've been really good, particularly these last couple of weeks. I mean, as great as the defense has been under Jim, it's been tough here these last couple of weeks. So as far as staff structure, it would be pretty irresponsible speculation on my part. I have no idea. And I'm not sure Jim does either. He has to kind of let this play out too as to what happens long term if he's going to be in this position long term. Anything else would be just reckless guesswork.
Talking with Matt LePay, the voice of the Wisconsin Badgers, the day after they let Paul Chryst go. So now you look at the program and you think, okay, the development of Graham Mertz, was that stymied by, accelerated by, or is this situation just kind of hampered his growth or the offense? And Matt, we looked at this thing with a 5-star quarterback coming in, and we thought, okay, finally, the next guy after Russell Wilson to really be able to guide the Badgers. Talk about specifically the quarterback play and what you've seen in the growth or lack thereof out of Graham Mertz.
Well, I think early in the season there were really positive signs of growth, or even last Saturday, the way the game started. I mean, he's zipping the ball, throwing it with great confidence, and then, when the running game couldn't get going, that made everything more difficult. And he had, the 2 interceptions he had Saturday. The first one really can't put on him. The second one you can. He did a great job of avoiding the rush, but had a bad throw and paid for it. I do think, in fairness to Graham here, he's had multiple voices. John Budmeyer handled the quarterback coaching duties, and then he moved on, and he actually was sick and missed a good portion of the 2020 season. Talking about Johnny, you have Paul back in there last year. Now you got Bobby Ingram, Keller Chryst helping out as he can. So it's been multiple voices. I can't imagine that is ideal. Graham, in the COVID year, got COVID right after his dream first game against Illinois. That knocked him back for a time. Last year, it looked like he was getting into a rhythm, got hurt in the second half of the Michigan game. But I think in a bigger picture, Bill, what you find with a program like a Wisconsin, if you have a 4 or 5 star and it doesn't unfold the way you want, it hurts you more than, let's say, at Ohio State, which is a program loaded with 4 and 5 stars. And you get a couple guys that don't work out, then you just go to the next guy in line. Really loose but dangerous comparison here. With Wisconsin, anytime you compare pro to college, it could be dangerous at best. But in a lot of ways, I look at Wisconsin in a similar way I look at the Milwaukee Brewers. If you got a $26 million left fielder who isn't very good anymore, that could kill you as a small market baseball franchise. If you're the Dodgers, you can overcome that. And I think where Wisconsin sits, it's a similar thing. Whatever the reasons, if you have a key player who you're really counting on, 4 or 5 star, and he doesn't live up to the expectations of people, that hurts you more at a place like Wisconsin than it does at an Alabama, a Clemson, an Ohio State, a Georgia, et cetera. I mean, that's just the world that we're in. People don't like to accept that, but that's the reality.
Matt, real quick before I let you go, and I know you got to run. You've been great with us, but now what? And what does this team have to do to improve? I mean, it's easy to wrap your hands around and go, they just got to get better. But specifically, is there an area that you got to say this has to be better for this team to have success?
Well, from a pure football standpoint, Bill, they have to try, and it's a product of luck here too. They need to get some continuity on the offensive line. They haven't had that this season. I know that's hard for people to, I'm not using that as an excuse, but the game, you hear it all the time. You need continuity up front and reestablish your identity, and that's being able to run the ball, run it effectively, to set up your passing game. I think that is first and foremost. Be able to reestablish the line of scrimmage on both sides. Defensively, they've had more missed tackles than usual. A lot of new starters. I mean, it was, I think, a reasonable expectation that it would take some time for this defense to round in the form. But, in the first half Saturday, short fields got them off of turnovers. In the second half, that wasn't the case. They got knocked around a little bit. And get guys to the ground when you get your arms around them. I mean, those are the simple things there. As I see it, no matter who the coach is. But first and foremost, when you think of Wisconsin, you think of now getting Braylon Allen going, getting Chez Malusi going. Those guys are getting hit way too early in a play. They're not able to forget the second level. They're having a hard time squeezing through the first with the early contact. So if they can get a little bit more continuity on the offensive line, get some rhythm, and get these guys going, then that could make a world of difference with what they're trying to do offensively.
Matt, great stuff. It's been far too long. We got to get you on more often, but I appreciate it, man, and best of luck, okay?
All right, brother. Good talking to you. Take care.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon. There you go. Matt LePay, the voice of the Wisconsin Badgers, very as honest as he can be and as frank as he can be. It just the program started to slide. It started to get away from him, and you got to stop the slide, and that's what happened. That's what the decision Chris McIntosh made. And like I said, it's very reminiscent to me of when Mike McCarthy got fired, where you like to wait to the end of the season. You like to do it in a more dignified manner. You like to give not only the exiting coach his proper due, but you'd also like the team to correct itself and to feel good about a certain situation. And sometimes the situation itself dictates as to what is going to happen. And what happened on Saturday was the beginning of the end, as a matter of fact. Let's do this. We're going to step away, take a quick break. Yesterday, a big Packers win. Not in the sense that it was a big win over a great team, okay? But to come back for such an ugly performance, we're going to talk about that all day, okay? And make no mistake about it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to discuss it. I want to get into it, okay? But I want Badger fans to give me your reaction to what you witnessed on Saturday, to the firing of Paul Chryst yesterday, and to where the program needs to go in the future. Give me your thoughts, your direction, your discussion, your confidence in Wisconsin Badger football. your confidence now in Wisconsin Badger football, if you have it or if you don't. I want to kind of gauge your level of it. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends over there at New Mail Medical, treating guys with ED all over the state of Wisconsin, beyond the borders. They've been getting it done for a long, long time. 98% success rate when it comes to ED, and they can all but help you. Okay, just about guaranteeing the fact that they can. How about if you're kind of moody, you're up and down, you're sluggish, you're not feeling it, putting on weight? It could be the fact that you are suffering from some low T. If you're over the age of 30, it takes you maybe 10 minutes to get your numbers checked. It really is nothing at all. Just stop in and tell them we sent you. How about an all-in-one weight loss program? As the fall sets in, here come the holidays, the cakes, the cookies, the pies, all the treats, and you're not eating right, you're not getting out, you're not walking, you're not healthy. Maybe this is a way to jumpstart it. The all-in-one weight loss program. All you got to do is call 414-455-4451, 414-455-4451. Want to hear from you, Badger fans, now. The thought regarding the program, the firing of Paul Chryst, and the direction this program is headed. Stay tuned. We got a lot more of the Bill Michaels Show coming up next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Is from Anthony, who says, I think it was time for Paul Chris to go. He's a likable guy, but he became stale. Just look at the passion that he had to the media. I don't think he has the same passion on the sidelines, or at least behind closed doors. Guys like him find him funny, but do they laugh at him or with him? No. I don't think anybody was I think we have had at times where press conferences were a little bit like what was just said, that type of thing. But you don't know if you're not in that room. Guys are very different. Coaches are very different behind closed doors. So all I can say is the product on the field was not to the level of Wisconsin Badger football and what is expected. And when you start to see the slide, and Matt LePay alluded to it moments ago on the program, when you start to see the slide on the field, and you feel like you can't stop it, and you've had a bit of a slide in recruiting, and that is being discussed, and you can just feel the program is it's on the downside, and no, it's kind of like unacceptable. Your level, your standard should be up, not down, after the success you've had. And when you see it coming, you got to do something about it. You got to do something about it. Coming up after the top of the hour, we're going to hear from Jim Leonard and Chris McIntosh, both of their comments from yesterday. So that's going to be right around the corner. It says next season is going to be even more different for Wisconsin than it seems right now. Ingram's going to be gone as the offensive coordinator. Maybe look at Scott Tolzien. Rogers raves about Tolzien being a film rat in Green Bay. He has spent some of the time with Kellen Moore in Dallas. I also believe that Mertz hits the transfer portal after this year. Christ is gone, and rightfully so. He's been a public enemy number one in Madison for a couple of years now. If Wisconsin doesn't have a problem paying a nice buyout to Christ, they better pony up the cash for a revamped recruiting department. Huge fork in the road for Wisconsin football. You bring up a good point. Your life's blood as a head coach. You can do anything and everything you can on the field in X's and O's. But if your school does not put the proper resources in place for recruiting, which is really and that needs to be recognized. If they don't do that, and don't give me I think we've done enough. If you think you haven't done enough, if you know you've done enough, and if you know that you are head and shoulders above many or all, then you go and say, we've done enough, the coach hasn't executed. But if you're going to help out a new head coach, and I don't care if it's Jim Leonard or anybody else coming into the program, I hear every now and then, we think we've done, no. When you think you've done enough means you're not sure, means you don't, means you're doubting yourself. Have you done enough? You know if you've done enough. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I know that some of the things that have come out of Wisconsin have not been good when in regards to recruiting, in regards to the resources dedicated to it. But I do know one thing: when I hear the words, "I think we've done enough," then I go, "No, you haven't. No, you haven't. You're chasing those that are ahead of you, thinking you've done enough." Look yourself in the mirror and say, did I do enough? And if you can say, yeah, I've done enough. I've done more than enough. Under-promised, over-delivered. Then you go ahead in that direction. You say, yeah, I think I can do it. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. This one is from Rick, who says, I hope the Badgers don't revert to the John Jardine years. Yeah, I'm that old. Well, go all the way back to the Morton days. The Morton days weren't that bad either, or weren't that good either. Not until Barry got here, and Barry took over the program and said, here we go. Tom says, we've all been spoiled by Wisconsin pro and college sports. P.S. I like being spoiled. Rick then saying recruiting is everything. And in college sports, I mean, that's all it's all about is recruiting, is what you get. Braylon Allen said, anyone who wanted Coach Chris gone is not a part of this team. And the Witterman says, it doesn't sound like that's lost the locker room. That's from a team leader, though. You don't know. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. You may hear other people. Braylon Allen is taking a role of leadership. I appreciate that. Now, the one thing, if I'm in that locker room, I don't know if I'd appreciate, unless I've already spoken with him, is to say he's speaking for me. This is where a CEO who's been there a while and the company has seen a lot of success gets let go because the company has not reached its goals. And guys or girls inside that company say, anybody that didn't support that guy, he's not one of us. Well, you don't know if Tony down in the mail room or if Steve on the production line or if Artie over there in sales, you don't know how they feel maybe. So you can say it sounds like he does. He put it this way. He didn't lose Braylon Allen, but you don't know what was said inside that locker room and what people feel. I've been a part of that. Sometimes you look at it and go, man, you had really, really good leadership. And things were really cooking along, and somebody with a different idea comes along and says, no, not what we want, not what we're accustomed to. Or you see a slide and you think, we can fix this. And then when the coach gets fired, it's kind of like it's the admittance of failure on your part as well. And Braylon Allen probably taking a lot of that personally. And I appreciate that. As a leader, I appreciate that. Because he's probably looking at it going, had we done our job, coach isn't fired. I mean, that's an indictment of you and your performance as well. Don't forget. Because they're not firing people if he's undefeated or has one loss to Ohio State in a close, hard-fought game, right? Brent says, I think that it was time for Coach Chris to go. He's done a lot for the state of Wisconsin. His family certainly has as well down in Platteville, but this is a tough day for all of us. Wisconsin football is better than this. It needs to go to a higher level. It needs to chase Ohio State, grab them by the ankles, and eventually drag them down. If we're not striving for that, then what are we doing? We're throwing money down a money pit, building bigger and better stadiums to do what? To keep up with the Joneses, only to tell ourselves that we're doing all we can, but actually falling short. If the recruiting department is not getting enough funding, not getting enough resources, then why are you building a bigger end of the stadium just to be able to sell beer and make more money? If that's all this is all about, just tell us. We can send in a donation and not have to get amped up on Saturdays. That's from Brent. Brent, thanks for the email. I'm going to take a quick break, come back. A lot more of this pouring in. Want your opinion? Give us a call. And that's a great one, by the way. Brent, if you want to call in, call in. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. The state of Wisconsin football, the direction it's going, the recruiting. What now? How do you feel your confidence level in Wisconsin football? Stay tuned. We're going to talk about it all when we come back. More of the Bill Michaels Show coming up right after this.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Gene Adela in the title tones featuring Wayne Larrabee, Jason Wilde, and Mark Tauscher. Game Day Bus, take 47.
Let's all take
the Game Day Bus
to Titletown. Let's go.
Wayne, Tausch, Wilde, haven't you been practicing all year? What if I said Pella fans can get 0% interest for 48 months on any replacement project right now?
Yeah!
And there is your Pella.
Can he say that? Isn't that trademarked?
His paycheck for this says otherwise. Speaking of catchphrases, we call this the Pella Now Pay Later option. Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin's experts stop by for an in-home consultation. They'll help you choose the perfect windows for your home. The installation is completed with no hassle or mess, leaving only perfect results while you put no money down, make no payments, and no interest for up to 4 years. Schedule your free consultation now at PellaWI.com.
Certain restrictions apply. See showroom for details. Expires 10/31/2022.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Now, in Green Bay, here's Mike Clemens.
The Packers held on to beat the Patriots 27-24. The lead changed 6 times in the game before Green Bay went 77 yards on a 12-play drive to set up Mason Crosby for a winning field goal 31 yards out as time expired in overtime. Packers wide receiver Randall Cobb.
Find a way to win a football game, man. It's hard to win in this league, and so many different guys made an impact on that drive to put us in that situation for Mason to go out there and kick the field goal to win it. It's a team game, and our defense played really well. Our special teams flipped the field in many situations, and they came up big there at the end with the field goal.
The Patriots lost quarterback Brian Hoyer to a concussion early in the game. Third-string rookie Bailey Zappi came in to lead New England's offense with a quarterback rating of 107.4. Head coach Bill Belichick dialed up a defense that kept Aaron Rodgers and his receivers timing out of sync. Rodgers throwing only the 4th pick 6 of his career.
Bill's, great coach. He had a great scheme. The guys made some plays. Felt like we got into a rhythm in the second half with some of the play calls. I settled in and usually don't have 2 terrible halves. So kind of returned to the form I expect for myself, and we started moving the football.
Bill Belichick.
In the end, Rodgers is just too good. He made some throws that only Rodgers can make. We had pretty good coverage on some of those, and he just, he's just too smart, too good, too accurate. And in the end, he got us. We couldn't quite do enough.
So the Packers improved to 3-1 and head to London to play the Giants, who beat the Bears. New England falls to 1-3 and in last place in the AFC East. Patriots safety Devin McCourtney on life after Tom Brady.
2020 was 7-9. Last year we had a couple runs, but I think to get blown out in the playoffs, I wouldn't say hasn't always been Super Bowls and AFC Championship. So. Just got to keep battling, keep fighting, and try to find our way.
That's the Patriots' Devin McCourty. In Green Bay, I'm Mike Clemens on The Bill Michaels Show.
Welcome back. Boy, they had a big weekend down at Sloppy Joe's and Smoke on the Water. Thanks to Joe and Ellen Hennis. They had a terrific motorcycle ride this past weekend. They had an 80s night on Saturday, which looked fantastic. The ride yesterday, a lot of the proceeds went to Fisher House, Wisconsin. So if you go out and you're thinking about a place to go and want to support either one of those, any of the businesses we discussed, but both of them did fantastic. Sloppy Joe's out in Hubertus, Smoke on the Water on Okauchee, 2 terrific places, and not to mention the fact that they do a lot of charitable work in the community. Just great stuff. Great stuff. Let's get to the phone calls talking about this Wisconsin Badger program. And I promise you, it's a Green and Gold Monday. We got a lot to discuss when it comes to the Wisconsin Badgers, but I think we would be doing a disservice if we didn't talk or to the Green Bay Packers, but I think we would do a disservice if we weren't talking some Badger football as well as to what happened over the weekend with the firing of Paul Chryst. Let's go to Kevin listening to us in Green Bay. Kevin, how you doing, man? What's going on?
Good morning, Mr. Bill. So I am a Florida State guy, and so I am feeling the pain of Wisconsin football right now because we have really been through it the last few years. And here's the thing. I give great credit to the AD for pulling the trigger on this early. And I think this is something that we're seeing a trend in the big time college football world. If you got a coach that's just that his team is going into a tailspin or they're sluggish, you cannot afford to wait and see if the thing turns around. You got to get out of it now. And here's the reason why. College football landscape has completely changed. It is becoming every day more and more like the NFL. And I mean, it's NFL money like too. Coaches are paid, in some cases better than NFL coaches. Mm-hmm. The players are all getting paid now that are 4-star, 5-star players. These NIL deals are huge. So here's the question I have. Do you think that Wisconsin Brain Trust, football Brain Trust, think that their boosters, their alumni, do they have the stomach to really look this thing in the eye and say, Are we going to compete at the highest level in college football because it's getting harder and harder to do? Or are we going to be happy being a 7, 8 game winner every year? Because if you can't get the 3-star, 4-star, 5-star kids, and they mean you to have NIL deals, that means you got to upgrade your facilities to compete with the likes of Ohio State and Michigan and Clemson and Alabama. I mean, to be in that top 10 level, you have got to throw just gobs of money at it. Does Wisconsin have that kind of money? Are the people willing to do that? And are they willing to look themselves in the eye and say, do we just need to retweak this thing with somebody like Jim Leonard and maybe get a little bit better? Or do we really need to grab the bull by the horns and say, we're going to compete at the highest level by hiring a big-time coach and going after the big-time kids? I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, Bill.
That's a great question. I appreciate the phone call. He brings up a lot. We're up against the top of the hour. So let's do this. And I'll get to Mike as well. Mike, I know you're on hold. Hang in there. But we are sitting at the top of the hour, and I want to give you your due justice. But I want to address what Kevin had to say, because there's a lot there. And that is something right now as Chris McIntosh stares into the mirror and the alums and such stare into the mirror. It's like, what do you want to be? What is stated and what is real? What is stated and what is real? And are they on the same path? Because they cannot be parallel and they cannot be discerning. They have to be on the same track. Great question. Great way to end the first hour. We continue on. Coming up an hour from now, we got Eric Branchek of the Green Bay Press-Gazette breaking down the film from last night. We got a lot from Matt LaFleur, a lot from inside the locker room. We've got more. We're going to hear from Chris McIntosh and Jim Leonard coming up. Mike, hang in there. I promise I'm going to get to you. 1 hour down, more yet to go. The Bill Michaels Show, brought to you by our friends at the Social House, Haus, on Lisbon Road in Menominee Falls. Great people over there, and I saw a big watch party for the games yesterday. Good stuff. Tell Dan we said hi. More of the Bill Michaels Show coming up right after this.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, after almost 8 years at Wisconsin, the Paul Chryst era has come to an end. It was a move that surprised a lot of people as the Badgers parted ways with their head coach after a second straight 0-2 start in Big Ten play that included an ugly 34-10 loss to Illinois on Saturday. Here's more from Athletic Director Chris McIntosh.
I'm optimistic that today's the first day of the future of this program and of the direction we'll take it.
And the direction now will be led by interim head coach Jim Leonard.
I feel like I can take this opportunity and help this place grow. And that's why I came back a number of years ago, and that's why I haven't left.
The Badgers now will travel to Northwestern to face the Wildcats on Saturday. Yesterday at Lambeau Field saw Aaron Rodgers bounce back from a poor first half to throw 2 second-half touchdowns and led an overtime drive that resulted in Mason Crosby kicking in a 31-yard field goal as time expired to beat the Patriots 27-24.
This way of winning, I don't think is sustainable because it's just pushed too much pressure on our defense. And obviously I got to play better and will play better. But the second half is our kind of football where we're mixing it up. We're throwing the ball outside the numbers. Obviously we ran the ball, controlled line of scrimmage really well. But we got to play better in all three phases.
Up next, the Packers are in London to take on the Giants.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
As a proud sponsor of the WIAA, they care about your community like you do. They believe the communities that support their athletes are the true champions. Visit ruralmutual.com/WIAA to learn how they support high school athletics.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
The Milwaukee Brewers would fall in 12 yesterday to the Miami Marlins at American Family Field 4-3 and deflate their playoff hopes in the race for the final NL wildcard spot. The Crew sits 2 games back of the Phillies with only 3 games left to play. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
Welcome in, everybody, on the Bill Michaels Sports Talk Network. We certainly appreciate you being here. Quite the weekend when it comes to Wisconsin sports, huh? Packers get a win, and it was ugly, but it's a win. You're still 3-1. As bad as things were, you're still 3-1. Now, does it cover up the blemishes? No, not in my world. But you're 3-1, and there were some good aspects of that game yesterday you have to talk about. We'll get into that coming up here in a little bit. The Brewers, it's just sad that we've said it for a while now. We're just kind of watching the disintegration of this thing as the season winds down. 2 games under it, just not going to happen. Not going to happen. And then, obviously, the firing of Paul Chryst, the Wisconsin Badgers. Chris McIntosh, the athletic director, makes a change and wants to stop the bleeding, if you will. Jim Leonard, the interim head coach, we'll see if he gets the interim tag pulled off eventually or if the program decides to go in another direction. But Jim Leonard getting an opportunity. We're going to hear from both coming up here in just a little bit. In the meantime, I want to go back to what Kevin had asked just before the top of the hour, okay? And Mike, hang in there. I know you're on hold. I'll get to you. I promise. But he asked some really interesting questions. And one of the questions was, you got to look within inside yourself now if you're the program and if you're an alumni and supporter, what do you want to be? Okay. And what are you happy with? All right. So here's what I meant by it is you cannot have them. Those thoughts have to be on the same track. Outwardly, Chris McIntosh and everybody in that room will say, ultimately, we want a championship. It starts with winning the West, then the Big Ten, and then winning a national title. That's what we want. That's what our goal is. You know what? That's what everybody's goal is. That's what every team that walks into a locker room says. Right? You're not there to say, yeah, I hope we get 6 wins and everybody learns something. No. Not in the world of college athletics, and specifically not in the world of football when you're in the Big Ten. Unless of course, you look yourself, you look your alumni in the eye and you say, you know what we're in it for? The money. The money. You're not going to do that either, right? So outwardly, we want to win the West. We want to win the Big Ten. We want to continue to grow the program. We want a national title. Outwardly, that's what you say. Inwardly, actions speak louder than words. What are you striving for? Matt LePay alluded to it. There is Wisconsin, Penn State, Michigan State, Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska. They're all that level. And then there's Ohio State, Michigan, not far behind. Are you striving for that? Are you going to compete with that? That's a state school. It's not like it's not. What makes Ohio State Ohio State? Now you got to think, don't you? It's a state school. What makes Ohio State Ohio State? Tradition? Wisconsin's got tradition. Winning. 5-star recruit, 2-star recruit, 3-star recruit, 4-star recruit. We got them all. Ohio State's got that tradition of winning. Do they got money? Yeah, they got money. Why? They're a state school. They're in the middle of Columbus, Ohio. Okay, so what? Are you just making excuses? At some point, what comes first? The 5-star recruits or the winning? You win a title, you get more recruits. You are going to have to overwork what Ohio State is doing if you want to ever get to that echelon. I always ask people, look, I'm from there. I get it. Their tradition, their tailgates, their people, their fans, they're no different than Wisconsin fans. They're ardent and passionate, and they live and die for that. Many people in this area do, but you live and die for it when you have success. The fans demand the program is here. I think Wisconsinites have gotten to the point where you go, we're never going to get there. It's Ohio State. So we don't demand it. I think you got to demand it. Right? Ben, am I wrong on this?
I don't think so necessarily. I think there are building blocks there. You can't just jump up. And yes, you could have that goal and you'll talk about that as your goal. But there are many things this program and this team has to improve upon before you can even consider that. There also is the fact that the Big Ten West won't exist in 2 to 3 years. So whatever improvements you make, because the playoff is going to expand, there won't be the West. So you could get into the playoff, but still not be there for Big Ten titles. You have to ask, are the improvements we're making really getting us into that echelon 4 to 5 years down the road?
Right.
I don't want to get ahead of the skis here and say, oh, this coach has to come in and bring the program up to compete with Ohio State. I think first they need to look inward and say, we haven't invested enough in recruiting. We might need to start, like we use NIL for talent retention. We might need to start using it for talent acquisition as time goes on in the portal, in recruiting.
Exactly. Exactly. You are 100% correct. And I don't even know if you were going in that direction or not. What you have to do is where the actions and the rubber meets the road versus the lip service is you got to say, not only are we going to be Ohio State, we are going to try to beat them at their game. We have to invest. You're making all this money. You have to invest more than what they are in being able to say, we have to catch up with them. That's what it's like having credit card debt. You can make the minimum payment, but the balance gets bigger every month if you're only making the minimum, right? So you find yourself deeper and deeper in the hole. You can spend equal or do just what's necessity of you, what's expected of you, but what you need to do is more of what's expected of you. You got to close the gap, and you're not going to close it in a year or 2 or 4. You're going to close it in a matter of 10. And I'm talking about talent acquisition. You're going to have to come up bigger NIL. You're going to have to put more resources into recruiting. You've got to have the right staff in place that once you get those recruits, you've got the right people, the right culture, the right capability in that group to be able to not only school them, but to bring them on as athletes and make them better. So you have to be confident in. But you have to, if you're telling people we want to win a championship and then staying the same, you are a liar because it's not working. What you have to do is be better than what you are and be better at them at what they're doing to close the gap. Ohio State didn't start out being Ohio State. Alabama didn't start out being Alabama. Alabama was there under Bear Bryant. They went through many years of the downturn, and then they got Nick Saban. They weren't Alabama until Nick Saban came back. And people think Alabama has been this massive monster for years. Miami used to be the massive monster. And then Jimmy Johnson left. They had some success, and now they're just Miami. But Miami had tradition, and it was the U. It's only the U, and it's only them when they're them. Why can't Wisconsin be better? All the excuses as to why they can't be. It's not why you can't be. It's why you won't be. And that's a great point by Kevin, where people have to look themselves in the mirror and say, what do we want the program to be? What are you content with, and what do you strive for? And are those two things on the same path? Because if they're not, then you're lying. And stop lying to people. Just say we're about the money, we're about collecting our profits, we're about a certain level of income, and we're about just trying to get ourselves to a bowl game. Because then Wisconsin fans can say, you know what, on Saturdays, I'll go about my business.
I was there on Saturday, Bill.
Yeah.
It was horrible. I couldn't even drink in the stadium to cope with it.
Right? I heard you say that earlier today, which I think is also ridiculous. That's the same thing as back when the NFL used to say we can't play in Vegas. Major League Baseball, we can't play in Vegas. In the NBA, we can't play in Vegas. Oh my God, we're gonna stand on a higher moral ground. My ass, stop. All the goofy politicking rules and regulations of what you are. You don't mind taking money for advertising. both as a school and or as a the Big Ten, but yet you want to say that you're going to stand on a higher moral ground? Come on. It's all about the money. You've proven that now. Just end it already. Quit lying to everybody.
You know who all that starts with, aside from McIntosh, which is the obvious one? It starts with who they hire. And not only as head coach, but as offensive coordinator. That might be the most interesting part of this process to me.
Right.
Because if they keep Leonard around, the thing that will drive the success of this program, aside from Leonard at the top, is do they actually hire a competent offensive coach that can craft a staff, can craft an offense, can bring good players in, someone with experience? Because the Ingram experiment that's been going on, that has not worked.
Yeah.
And they brought him in with no experience because they wanted Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Anytime, well, you see a guy coming out of a pro organization, you think, well, he's dealt with people at the highest level. It's going to be easy with college. And we've all seen it's not. It just isn't. Never has been. So I completely get it. Just, it never has been. It's never been an easy transition for many. And hell, Nick Saban tried it. Couldn't do it. Couldn't happen. So 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. Let's get back to it. And let's get back to the phone calls. Let's go to Mike. Mike, welcome to the program, The Bill Michaels Show. What's going on, man?
Morning, Bill. Hey, really enjoying your program today. I wish there was more Badger talk on the radio in this state. We don't get enough of it. Now, I've been listening to you guys over the last few minutes. I mean, those are all good arguments, but I think the Badger program has to establish themselves, like you said, as winners. One of the things I like about Jim Leonard coming on as the head coach is that Wisconsin has always been, the big school for walk-ons. And Jim Leonard is like the epitome of walk-ons. And you get to compete for these big players, big high-star players. You are going against programs that have a clear chance of winning the national championship there every year. But these guys who are maybe kind of overlooked, good players, walk-on players, I think Jim Leonard would be great in getting them to come to Wisconsin. Listen, we can show you, what you can do here. Look at me, 10 years in the NFL. I think that's one of the reasons why I think he's really great. And then like a second point, I think the route for the Badgers to make it to prominence in college football is through the 25-team playoff. I think they're good enough to make the 25-team playoff, or maybe good enough at some point soon. And if they can win a couple big games in that, and even luck out and somehow, get a Russell Wilson to take them all away, I think that would turn things around completely. That's all my only point.
Okay. No, I appreciate it, Mike. Thanks so much. And glad you're enjoying the Badger chatter today. I agree that you're going to have to hit on a few guys to get you there. Now I want to go over to Mark on the Bud Light live stream. Mark says, this is where you're wrong. Ohio State and Michigan in the 1970s and 80s, they were 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Then they evolved. Wisconsin has never evolved into today's game. They are stuck in the 70s. That is why Mertz was destined to fail. Well, I'm not wrong. I mean, my original statement was that Ohio State and Michigan were not Ohio State and Michigan until they were Ohio State and Michigan. You got to win. You got to win to get there. And then you become legacy. You become respected. You become higher. Georgia had Herschel Walker. They were running all over people. They were doing it with 3 yards in a cloud of dust. They went into anonymity for a while. Now they're back. Clemson, they weren't Dabo Swinney for a long time. And then Dabo comes on, and then next thing you know, they're Clemson. Texas used to be the team to beat. Texas then went through a lot of turmoil. Texas is now on the upturn. I agree they're bigger pockets and they're larger fan bases, so to speak. But, UCLA used to be an incredible program. USC, an incredible program. They're not anymore. Now they're trying to bring it back by the hire, by the reinvestment into the NIL, by the reinvestment into their scouting departments. They've had success. They were on the downturn. Why is Wisconsin so accepting of sub-mediocrity? To say we can't compete. Why? Why can't you compete? All I'm hearing is reasons why we're going to fail, not why we can't get better. That's Chris McIntosh's job. That's what you want to compete you want to run Greg Gard out of town. He gets to the tournament and fails. All of a sudden, people want Greg Gard out because you expect more? Right? But yet football, it's like, we'll get our 8 wins. We're fine with a couple of upsetting losses. We're going to whine and bitch about it. And we're going to say we can't compete with Ohio State. And we're going to accept wherever we end up. I think that's wrong. I think it's wrong. Go ahead, Ben.
Well, I'm a pessimist in this way. All of the programs you mentioned, they do live on recruiting hotbeds across the country where improvement is undeniable. Wisconsin has to get better in a lot of areas and commit more to success. Mainly, they have to hire great coaches and get this thing turned around.
Right.
It's hard for me to look at USC and their turnaround and Ohio State and their success and think that is repeatable at Wisconsin because they're in Wisconsin. The recruiting profile is just drastically different. The access to talent is. And you have to succeed before you get that talent. You look at what Lincoln Riley can do at USC. I don't think it's possible, whoever comes into Wisconsin, for them to do that fast. So it's more of a gradual build where you reestablish identity, you hire great coaches, you recruit better, but not maybe to that level. And then like we saw in 2017 and 2019, you have great teams every couple of years. Maybe I'm a pessimist, but that's how I view it.
Something you hit on was they are hotbeds for recruiting. And that's something that can be addressed in a whole different facet because you see football, and I'm getting a different glimpse of it now because, Kristen and I have been together for a few years, and I'm getting a chance to see like Pee Wee level football. And the coaching for Pee Wee level football and the parent involvement in Pee Wee level football, it starts there and works its way up. And the programs in the state of Wisconsin, the coaching in the state of Wisconsin, when you look at the national rankings and you start to look at some of these teams in the states that you discuss, you look at Louisville Trinity and what they have there. And starting to become a powerhouse in that area. And suddenly they're starting to get more and more kids out of Louisville Trinity from the University of Kentucky. You look at what goes on down in Alabama. You look at what goes on in Texas. That's big time football down there. And we don't look at it the same here. And maybe that's where some of this starts. I agree. Look, it's you got to be able to set up recruiting trails all throughout the country. And you got to have pipelines and such into recruiting in different areas. And sometimes you have to accept not the 5-star and the 4-star. You got to get the best of the 3 stars, and you got to get them to come here, coach them up, elevate them, and get them to believe that they can be 5 stars as well, and then push them into a situation that they can be successful. And then the 3 stars can prove something to the 5 stars that they can compete on the same level and the same ranking system and be better than them with the right scenario and circumstance around them. Sometimes it's about just building the program and trying to then get better and better and better. I agree with you that it might not be the hotbed of recruiting as, say, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, Florida, Southern Cal, all those places are. Understandable. But we can't just say, okay. And that seems to be the train of thought. I think for success to happen, you have to not accept sub-mediocrity, mediocrity, or just better than. The old adage is, Vince Lombardi, we are chasing perfection, and along the way, we're going to catch excellence. That has to be the mantra for Wisconsin. We have to be better. We got to be better than the Ohio States. We got to out Ohio State. If that's your goal, you got to out Ohio State. And I think that has to be the mentality moving forward. I guarantee Jim Leonhard in the NFL didn't look at it and go, well, I can only be so good because I came from Wisconsin. That's why you hope some of that mentality rubs off to the guys around him now that he's the head coach. 877-867-1670. I'm woefully late for a break. Let's step away. We'll be back right after this.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
meeting, and it's one that's, in my mind, going to live in that meeting room.
So Chris McIntosh talking about when they called the meeting to tell the players Paul Chryst was out. Now he talks about the confidence he has in Jim Leonhard as the next head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers.
You know, we're fortunate to have Jimmy on the staff, that we're in a position that we can entrust this level of responsibility and leadership to somebody like Jimmy. And so I mentioned earlier, I'm confident that there's nobody who can do it better at this moment in time than Jim. And, you know, our collective focus, everybody around this program and in it, is to try to maximize this season for our team.
Why now, as far as the in-season decision to move on from Paul Chryst? Here's Chris McIntosh.
This isn't certainly not a decision that's taken lightly. It's not a game-by-game decision. This is a decision that's based upon where we're at as a program. You know, I think it's important to make a decision when I feel it's the right time, given the circumstances of where we're at as a program right now. And so it's a tough time to make a transition, but I felt it was the right time, and that's what led me to it.
It's the right time. Sometimes it's just a gut feeling. I mean, I would have been happy if he just stated that. Sometimes you just look at the program and say, what direction are we going? And you need to make a move. Now, I got two more that I want you to hear specifically, okay, because it's what we're talking about. McIntosh talks about this being the first day of the future of the program. Listen to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's my role to have the position of our program always on my mind. You know, I think we just reached a point where today I felt was the right time to make that decision. You know, I mentioned it's not one I take lightly. It's an incredibly tough day for us all, but I'm optimistic that today's the first day of the future of this program and of the direction that we'll take it.
The first day of the future of this program. I get it. In other words, today is a new day. Everything that's happened in the past is in the past. What we want to do, the direction we want to go, all begins today. This is Chris McIntosh saying we are making a statement today. Now, what we just talked about, what is the goal of the Wisconsin Badger program when you make a move in firing the head coach? So now what is your goal? Here he is.
I would just comment more holistically on where we're at. The expectations of our program at Wisconsin are to win championships. And I felt that it was time. It was the right time to make a change to pursue those.
Did you hear that? For those that weren't paying attention, maybe you're driving in your car, maybe you got something going on. I want you to hear it again. When asked specifically, what is the goal of the Wisconsin Badger football program? This is what Chris McIntosh had to say.
I would just comment more holistically on where we're at. The expectations of our program at Wisconsin are to win championships. And I felt that it was time. It was the right time to make a change to pursue those.
Our expectation is to win championships. Now, it's exactly what I just asked you. Think about it. Is that lip service? Is that what you want to hear? Yeah. Or are they doing everything they can to win championships? To say that, but not act upon it is nothing more than a lie. To say that and say, that's the direction we are going to go. We are going to put our resources. In other words, we're going to spend the money not to build fancy new boxes for all of our supporters so they can drink beer and nobody else in the stadium can. What we're saying is we are going to put the resources into recruiting. We're going to put the resources into the coaching staff. We're going to put the resources into the areas necessary outside of the state of Wisconsin and in the state of Wisconsin to draw the best athletes, the best players, the 5-star, 4-star, best recruits, to develop them here in our program, to catch Ohio State, track them down, tackle them, and take over to what? Win a championship. Otherwise, you're full of crap. That's honest. I hope that Jim Leonard can lead this team, and that's what it's about, championships. It's not about just salvaging a season and getting to a bowl game and feeling good about it. You have to close the gap. Otherwise, it's lip service. More of the Bill Michaels Show next.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
This fall, it's Give and Take at Potawatomi. Thursday nights, give yourself a shot at winning slot play or up to $5,000. And with 60 winners each week, you've got a good chance to take home your share of over $400,000 in prizes. Just play with your club card October 1st through November 17th for entries. The Give and Take Game Show, each Thursday and only at Potawatomi Hotel and Casino. More at pacebig.com/give and take. Must be 21 years old and a club member to play.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. Good to have you. Phil Michaels Show. We continue on. And I've been talking a lot about the Wisconsin Badger program early on today, and rightfully so. Rightfully so, because of everything that's happened. And we're going to talk a lot of Packers football to come. I promise you that, no doubt. But I want to. We're going to talk with Eric Baranchik at the top of the hour. But I want you before we move on, I want you to hear from Jim Leonard, because I want you to get a sense. Listen, because we don't listen to him very much, and I'm talking about on the air, so to speak. We still listen to him and things that he has to say in regards to, being a defensive coordinator for the Wisconsin Badgers. But now taking over the program, he talks about the emotions of being the new head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers.
This place means a lot to me. I really felt like I grew up here. I've talked about this many times. I really became who I am at the University of Wisconsin and in this football program and around, so many people that are still here today. So to have an opportunity to be in this position is not one that I take lightly and very excited for. Very mixed emotions at this point.
He talks about getting this program back on track. Take a listen.
I feel like I can take this opportunity and help this place grow. And that's why I came back a number of years ago, and it's why I haven't left. And that's the mission that I want to continue forward with our guys, and just getting them to understand the trust, the confidence we have in this group of men that we will get this thing going the right direction, and it's going to happen sooner than later.
Talks about the focus when, big picture is one thing. But in the short term, you got to turn to the next week. You've got a game coming up on Saturday. You can start to wrap your arms around the program, but you also have to, along the way, get the guys prepared for what's to come. And he talks about that.
Going to be the biggest issue in the short term. In long term, there will be a lot of discussions on what we can do differently and what we need to do differently. But right now, it's how do we control the emotions and how do we get our players to compartmentalize being a kid, going home, being a student, and then when they're in this building, being able to focus and get prepared to win a game.
And last but not least, he says that, after talking to the guys inside that locker room, everybody understands where they're at and what's expected. And now it's easy to say we're going to turn it around, but they got to get from point A to point B.
We understand that our 5-game resume this year is not what we wanted. We have not been playing up to our capabilities. And even before this news, there was some hard conversations that were had today between coaches, players, among the staff on how do we get it corrected. So I think the emotions, being very open and real about where we currently are and what can we do to win this coming Saturday.
So there you go. That's it. That's it.
You know what's crazy, Bill?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Saturday's game is so winnable.
Mm-hmm.
In the grand scheme of all this chaos that's going on,
Right.
I think Wisconsin's more than a touchdown favorite at Northwestern, because if you think this Badger team is bad and struggling, I don't think I've seen a worse one than the Wildcats.
Now, okay, let me ask you this on that level. Going into Evanston, Illinois has been a craptastic nightmare. Playing there for whatever reason, it's not just Wisconsin, it's other teams that have gone there seemingly with a win in their back pocket only to walk away going, what the hell was that? It's just a weird atmosphere. And the Wisconsin Badgers, while fans do travel, the season is not what they wanted. So I would imagine not as many fans are going, oh, got to go see this one. They may not be traveling. Northwestern certainly is not collecting a large fan base at their games. This is going to be a really weird game. That being said, how big of a win is it if Wisconsin gets the win at a place they don't traditionally win in an atmosphere that is just subpar for many, many reasons? How big of a win would it be for them to get a win there?
It'll be big because if they go 4-3 the rest of the season and still make a bowl game, it maybe makes you feel better about what Leonard can do and what they can do moving forward. I would look at it that if they go and look great and win, that's a big positive. If they look horrible and lose, I don't think it's a huge negative given everything that's going on. So I don't think it's really a losing situation, if that makes sense, given all the chaos that's going on. But it'd be big. It would start the Leonard era well, and maybe it gives Leonard confidence he can be the guy, which I think is the best outcome at the end.
When you said if they go 4-3 and they get a bowl game, where are the other 3 losses coming from?
Oh, it could come from everywhere. Maryland's good. They're visiting Madison. They have to visit Nebraska, who's a disaster, but I mean, so is Wisconsin right now. Mm-hmm. They visit Michigan State, and Michigan State sucks, but still, you're visiting Michigan State and you just fired your head coach. They host Minnesota. Minnesota has a good team. They host Purdue, although they haven't lost to Purdue in 17, 18 years. Purdue is a good team. They could lose every game left on the schedule, but they also could win most of them because the teams aren't that great. But look in the mirror at this team we have in Madison. It's not good either.
Who will they not be favored against?
It'll start with Michigan State because it's on the road, I think. It'll actually be the first time the Badgers are underdogs against a team not named Ohio State in 4 years, which is crazy to think about given what this program's been through. They'll be underdogs against Michigan State. They'll be underdogs at Iowa, even though Iowa can't move forward on offense. And I could see them being underdogs against Minnesota at home because the Gophers will probably win the West, and the Badgers, I'm sure, will be in a tough place by that point.
I wonder what the jumpstart is going to mean. The firing of Paul Chryst and the hiring of Jim Leonard as the interim head coach. I wonder what the I wonder if they get the jumpstart this weekend and then everything comes crashing back down to earth at Michigan State. Or I wonder if they get the jumpstart this weekend and belief becomes, we can do this. Different voice, not stale, different energy, upbeat, fiery sidelines, that type of thing. Or if it's a one-hit wonder, and let's just say they do lose the next 3 out of 7. Let's just say that happens. Then what do you do at the end of the year with Jim Leonard?
I don't think it changes anything, even if they lose every game, because asking him to come in and turn everything around with this seemingly dysfunctional football team that doesn't do much right, I think that's unfair. I don't think that would put a cloud on what he could do in the future. He also is still kind of hampered by the staff Paul Chryst has put around. I don't think we should judge Jim Leonard as a head coach until he gets his staff in here, until he rebuilds the offense, until we see him on the recruiting trail.
Well, wait a minute. But you got to make a decision. So it's easy to say, give Jim Leonard his staff, his coaching, group, his recruiting trail. But if he's not the right guy, then again, 4 more years, you are setting this program back. Whatever has to be done improved now. If he doesn't have a successful campaign from here on out, even with the issues that are already plaguing this team, if they aren't, quote, coached up, do you look at Jim Leonard and go, you can't do anything better than Paul Chryst did? And you fired Paul Chryst, then you don't hire Leonard, right?
I don't know. That's not how I look at it. I just think it's unfair to ask him to go above and beyond with this team right now, because the problems aren't going to go away, and they're problems that have been there for years, and a lot of them probably you could tie to Christ. Leonard's always been the next guy.
Right.
So,
but my point is if you fired Chris because it's not good and you're failing, you can't then turn around and accept failure and say, Jim Leonard, the only reason I agree with you, normally if you're in a pro situation where you can go out and buy free agents and such, even though you kind of can now, okay, you put Jim Leonard in charge, you give him a few years, you put a staff around him. But if you don't hit it and you don't hit it right, you are really setting Wisconsin football back. And I'm not saying Jim Leonard can't. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, what if? That's why I get what you're saying, but I can't accept mediocrity. I just can't. If Jim Leonard gives me mediocrity, then he's got to go too. Mediocrity is not the strive here. Sub-mediocrity is not the strive under any circumstance or excuse. What I'm saying is, as a Wisconsin Badger fan, it is time. And if you don't grab it by the horns now and say, damn it, we are going to be better and we are going to catch Ohio State. But right now we got to catch the West and we are going to build upon it. Not in 4 years, not in 6 years. We're going to build upon it now. And if you can't do that now, then what are you doing? Just blow everybody out, get it over with, say we're going to scrub the season and call it. Not to say I'm going to forfeit, but just start searching now. And I know they say we're going to conduct a full search, but just say, hey, Jim, sub-mediocrity or mediocrity is unacceptable. Not going to have it. Today is the day. We are looking at a college football championship. We're not looking at winning the West. We're not looking at winning the Big Ten. We have been there. We have failed. We're now looking beyond. And you put pressure on the program, pressure on everybody inside that organization. Because you've already been there, done that. 877-867-1670. More of the Bill Michaels Show next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
One of the worst things that you can hear, you have cancer. The worst is when you hear the words, your child has cancer. When a child is diagnosed with cancer, it changes their world. Sometimes they can't even do things that they really love, like playing soccer, riding a bike, going to prom, attending school. Children with cancer spend a lot of time away from others. Time in the hospital, treatments, tired, nauseous, and they feel isolated. That's where Special Spaces Wisconsin steps in. They provide these children with a special space where they can not only sleep, but they can play, they can heal, they can spend time away from the challenges of their illness. It's a customized bedroom designed just for them. How about a princess castle or a pirate ship or a sports-themed bedroom? They transform that child's existing bedroom into a place that only he or she can imagine. A place for them just to be a kid. This effort is done with teams of dedicated volunteers and sponsors, just like our friends from Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin and all the community partners. If you'd like to find out more or to donate, go to specialspaces.org. That is specialspaces.org. Get on your ATV and hit the trails in Humbird, Wisconsin. Moto right up to the Scholze Family Beef Farm Store or order online at ScholzeFamilyBeef.com.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Now, in Green Bay, here's Mike Clemens.
The Packers beat the Patriots 27-24 in overtime at Lambeau Field in front of over 78,000 fans. Packers linebacker Rashawn Gary knocked quarterback Brian Hoyer out of the game in the first quarter with a concussion. Rashawn was asked how much did he know about the Patriots rookie third-string quarterback Bailey Zappi.
None. When he came in, our coaches of course did their homework and let us know the type of guy he was, and we have yet to play our standard of ball. So it's still things that we have to correct so we can play our perfect game. And that's what we are trying to do and make sure that we're doing it together.
Zappi led the Patriots offense, completing 10 of 15, including a 25-yard touchdown pass to Devontae Parker to take the lead in the third quarter. Zappi, a fourth-round pick out of Western Kentucky.
Of course, it was exciting at first. It was a dream come true to play in an NFL game. It's obviously not the outcome we wanted at all. First, I give credit to all my teammates. They kept me calm. They kept me, getting the nerves out of me. They kept me in my space and cool, calm, and collected. Everybody played well tonight. O-line played well. We ran the ball well. It really just comes down to me. I just got to make more plays, and the outcome's differently.
Patriots linebacker Matthew Judon, who sacked and kept pressure on Aaron Rodgers, praised the performance of Bailey Zappi.
Give a huge shout out to Zappi, man. The way he stepped up in that game. I don't even believe he took that many reps with the ones, and the way he played and the poise he had. That's amazing for a rookie. That's good for our team. And he was ready. He stepped up, and he did a hell of a job for us.
So now Matt LaFleur's got to get his team ready to face the 3-1 Giants in London after narrowly defeating a Patriots team, missing quarterback Mac Jones and other key starters.
They came in shorthanded. They battled, took us all the way to the end plus some. And it's never easy winning in this league. And certainly there's a lot of things that we need to do better. But bottom line is we found a way.
That's Matt LaFleur. In Green Bay, I'm Mike Clemens on the Bill Michaels Show.
Yeah. 2 hours on a Packers Monday of Wisconsin football. We're going to change the topic coming up here after the top of the hour. Eric Baranchek of the Green Bay Press-Gazette going to be joining us, and we'll talk with him about this Packers offense, which first half didn't look good, and it's for the most part for the first 4 games of the season it had been pretty solid on opening drives, and then after that we watched it stall. This particular contest, second half they came out and started to get into a little bit of a rhythm, and they did enough to win, but it is still concerning. So we're going to talk and there's one big shout out I think we have somewhat missed in this. For as bad as you can complain about anything and everything regarding the Green Bay Packers, yesterday, Mason Crosby hit a game winner. For everybody that wanted to see him run out of town, I just said, hey, I think it's the process. Heard from Mason Crosby prior to the game and at Lambeau, and one of the things that was stated was the process, the guys that Bisaccia has brought in, things that have gotten better. The process over and over again, the process, the guys regarding the process, it seems like there's a different level of confidence in play there. And I think that's what we talked about last year. It just goes a long way into the psyche and the confidence of Mason Crosby. You could see it when the kick was made. I mean, not even when it went through the uprights. He just turned around like, yes, finally, yes. Woo! Praise be. It's kind of like it just lifted, like, okay, now let's get back to business. So that area, positive. No doubt about it. We're going to talk about it when we come back. got Eric Branchek of the Green Bay Press-Gazette going to join us, break down all the film from yesterday. Stay tuned. More of the Bill Michaels Show coming up right after this.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the day after the Badgers would lose Saturday 35-10 to Illinois at Camp Randall, Wisconsin would part ways with their head coach, Paul Chryst. McIntosh said he had an emotional conversation with Chryst, and it was a tough decision to make, but it's what was best for the program.
I would just comment more holistically on where we're at. The expectations of our program at Wisconsin are to win championships, and I felt that it was time. It was the right time to make a change to pursue those.
Jim Leonard is now the interim head coach. Wisconsin now travels to Northwestern to take on the Wildcats on Saturday. To the NFL, Aaron Rodgers would bounce back from a dreadful first half to help the Packers lead Mason Crosby down the field in overtime to kick a field goal as time expired to beat the New England Patriots 27-24. Head coach Matt LaFleur is just happy they found a way to win and move to 3-1 in the season.
There was a lot of adversity throughout the course of the game, and our guys, stuck together. And they're not always going to be pretty wins, and I'm okay with that. You guys can criticize us. That's cool. But bottom line is we found a way to win.
Up next for the Packers, they'll head to London to take on the Giants Sunday.
Want to save even more at Fleet Farm? Well, now you can with Fleet Rewards. It's free to sign up, and there's no credit card required. Using Fleet Rewards is easy. Earn points every time you shop. Plus, get exclusive member offers, birthday and anniversary perks, free tire rotations, and more. Download the Fleet Farm app or create an account at fleetfarm.com/rewards to start earning points today. Fleet Farm, proudly serving the Midwest since 1955.
Following their loss to the Marlins, 4-3 in 12 innings on Sunday, the Milwaukee Brewers' playoff chances are dwindling. The Brewers are 2 games behind the Phillies for the third NL wildcard spot with only 3 games to play, and the Phillies owning the tiebreaker. Brewers and Diamondbacks get underway tonight from AmFam Field. First pitch is at 6:40. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
So it's October 2nd, and we're worried about it being an ugly win. They didn't win by enough points. They didn't look dominant enough. And I guess my answer to everybody is, you know what? When you're a running football team, and make no mistake about it, right now, that's a running football team. A lot of your games are going to be close or closer. And is it ugly? Depends on who you're looking at. I love running football.
I love it. So for me, that was a great game. I enjoyed it. I was at the edge of my seat the entire time. You take 2 plays out, the Romeo Doubs drop and the Romeo Doubs fumble, and it's probably a game that they win going away. So how I look at it is it was a great running performance. They got some kinks that they're going to continue to work out, but it's a W, and the W's at the end of the season, it isn't your point differentials, it's just how many W's you get. At least that's how I see it. I don't know. How do you feel?
Well, I look at it. First of all, you're right. 183 yards in the ground for Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. It was a ground and pound. And then obviously the one little end around, so to speak, with Christian Watson, which worked to perfection. All of that, I completely agree. It's a running offense. What I look at is a lot of what I've been kind of, yelled at about over the last couple of years. And that is maybe I nitpick the wins a little bit too much because I can see some of the chinks in the armor. But then again, I also look at it and I say, wait a minute. There's some things that are consistently wrong here. Can they correct these? Will they correct these? When will I see the correction of these issues that have ultimately cost them in the postseason? Last year, we talked time and again about the close but no cigar, close calls of the special teams. Well, that came back to haunt them. We talked about last year about play calling and getting the first 2 or 3 drives right and then getting stale and stagnant after that. We've seen that again this year. I just wonder, on January 15th, can they win this way?
I think they can. I mean, and I look at it. Here's the chink in the armor. So here's one of the chinks in the armor. You got a team with a bunch of number 3 receivers on it, right? I mean, I don't care what you say. Alan Lazard's a great human being, and he's just an awesome dude. But he's a number 3 receiver at best. Okay, when people talk about number 1, number 2, as a skill level type guy, he's your number 3 receiver. He's a possession receiver. He's going to, make all the catches. He's going to do all those kind of things, but he's not dynamic. He's not going to get anything done. And then you got Cobb, who's at the very twilight of his career. And, the Romeo Doubs, here's the bright part that I think a lot of people need to see. That throw, the first touchdown that he caught, or I should say, the only touchdown that he caught, that play was spectacular. If people want to slow down, they want to watch that play again. That ball comes out at the 9-yard line. For a young receiver, a lot of times the ball comes out and they start turning their head and turn their shoulders. Now the defensive back has time to recover, can come up, make a play on the ball, at least defend it. You saw him stay true to his, so the ball's in the air for 8 yards. He stayed true to his route, driving his shoulders upfield. He gets to the 2-yard line. He turns. The D-back had no idea that the ball was coming. He turns, makes a great catch, falls backwards in the end zone. Touchdown. That is a professional wide receiver that does things like that. Now you look at the play in the third quarter or the second quarter with Christian Watson up the sideline, and he bends over backwards like some sort of Gumby move rather than running upfield and then turning his shoulders at the last second to make the catch. So that's the difference between a professional wide receiver and a college wide receiver. So you see Romeo Doubs making that improvement that can get them where they need to be in the postseason, and Christian Watson isn't there yet. The only thing he can do is run when the ball's in his hand. So if they're going to be effective in January, he has to develop at least at the similar trajectory that Romeo Doubs is developing.
I do like the fact that they set this up weeks ago against the Chicago Bears. We saw a lot of that motion out of Christian Watson. He didn't get the ball, obviously. Now we see motion out of him again and again and again. He didn't get the ball until he did, and when he did, they hit pay dirt. So they had been setting that kind of motion up and using that pretty consistently with the ability to give him the football. Now teams that look at this Packers team say, wait a minute, it's not just motion, it's not just to dictate which direction the defense is going to be drugged to, but also we have to look at this as a legitimate threat and weapon. So that's going to give other opportunities for other guys and Rodgers to do different things with the football down the road. So that play call I liked.
Sure, and there's a lot more of that too, because what that does, exactly what you're talking about, what that does is freezes backers and freezes safeties. Because they showed yesterday, not only are they going to hand the ball to him, but he can do that orbit motion, or he can do flat line motion across the line of scrimmage, and they'll throw it to him over there in the flat. Unfortunately, they missed the pass. It was a bad pass. But the reality is that what that's going to do, and you saw it happen to Lazard in that one play in the third quarter where he came up the seam and it was 3rd down and 6 and they caught it for 15 right in the seam. That's because the safety was the linebackers were held because you had one running back going to one flat, the other running back going to the other flat. So the linebackers had to hold, and the safety came up, and as soon as that safety got the weight on his front toe, they snapped the ball, and it was a Lazard all the way. So you had a great quarterback, but that shows you what that's going to do to the linebackers to open up the stuff downfield is get those safeties with their feet in cement and linebackers looking in the backfield, and then whoop, that's when the guy sneaks out behind there. And those plays are going to continue to happen the more success they have with, if you think about it, it's kind of like the 49ers last year and the year before. Everything's horizontal, and all of a sudden, bang, one comes out of the chute. And you see that it's starting to happen, especially now that they can continue to run the football in the same fashion that they are. There's going to be more and more of those plays, especially against teams that aren't as well coached as New England. That secondary was I sat there up there in the box just looking at it going, how are these safeties not biting? How are they not biting? They're just coached very, very well to stay deep. You saw safeties, they did not go to fill the alley or fill to the perimeter until the ball crossed the line of scrimmage. And for most people, that is really difficult. Probably not for them because they got to deal with that grumpy bugger in the watching film on Mondays. But boy, I tell you, they're very well coached, and that's what took away some of the stuff that the Packers wanted to do. But they still got them in a couple of occasions, especially when they wanted to creep that safety down to the box. You got 8 guys in the box. You're going to come out to shoot on the perimeter if they can execute the play at the end. So that's going to be the next step that they have to do. Everything's happening. You can see it happen. It's just they got to be able to execute up, when those things happen. The pass to Watson, Dobbs just got to hang on to that one of the touchdown. Those two happen, and then the fumble, it's probably a blowout going away. It's going to take some time, but I like what I'm seeing.
So, okay, let me ask you this. Defensively speaking, it seemed like when, Bill Belichick needed pressure, they would bring a corner blitz. They were going to try to put as much as they could on Aaron Rodgers and make him throw to I don't want to say an inexperienced, but not the best of the best receiving corps. You saw Joe Barry. They stayed in a lot of soft zone coverage, man. And Bailey Zappi was hitting. I mean, the guy was throwing underneath passes and hitting guys that were running wide open across the middle. At what point do you see Joe Barry say, wait a minute, was it just the fact that Adrian Amos, their center fielder, went down, kind of the captain of the defense, so to speak, and you were playing without Jair, that things began to get a little sideways? And is that indicative of the depth? Or was this Joe Barry just didn't want to be aggressive and wanted to keep everything in front of him?
It was 2 quarterbacks that were not staying home doing their job. So on the one long one at the beginning of the game, that was Rasul Douglas, who you know what? They're in a 3 deep zone, and he just got worked. You got turned around a little bit, not the best. The touchdown by Aguilar up the sideline, and it was the 4th quarter. Eric Stokes carried his guy beyond his zone. They were again in cover 3. He carried his guy beyond the zone, and that guy snuck behind it. Had he stayed home, might have been a completion, but it certainly wouldn't have been a touchdown. Their way that they do defense is they're not gonna let you throw it over the top of us. You're gonna catch stuff in front of us, and we're gonna tackle it. We're gonna make you go 80 yards downfield, and hopefully we're going to sack you. And if you don't sack us, you're going to throw it up at some point, we're going to pick you off. That's their philosophy. That's how they play. You can see it because they're not sending guys. The only blitz that you really see is they send Quay Walker, which is probably going to become more and more as the season goes on. He finally got home yesterday on that first out pass on 3rd down to the tight end. He got home to the quarterback where he couldn't step in and finish the throw. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that once he starts getting on his feet and being able to do it. But you're right in the aspect that they do play soft, and that's who they are. That's what they do. And I don't think it's going to change. They want to get after the quarterback.
We're talking with Eric Branchek at the Green Bay Press-Gazette, breaking down yesterday's Packers game. So Aaron Rodgers, after the game, talked about, got to be better, and talked about how he played and such. It seems like Aaron Rodgers is now going through the realization, and we're going to hear from him coming up, but just in saying, look, I can't play the same way I'm accustomed to. I just got to start throwing it up and letting these guys just try to make plays. It certainly seems like, as much as he tries to elevate people to his level, like maybe there's a realization of, I got to just let these guys make plays and see what happens. He did say, we can't win this way. We can't win this way in the postseason. So I think there's a I don't want to say a come to Jesus in all of this, but I think that there is a frustration level on Aaron Rodgers' part saying, we're not, I can see it down the road. We're not going to win like this. We have to do things differently. And I'm getting frustrated because I'm going to have to throw it up and see what guys can do, because there's no way he can be the MVP again this season.
Well, the tight end is going to be his friend. I think that's the old adage, right? You were a tight end. You were always the quarterback's best buddy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Robert Tonyan kind of ripped the Band-Aid off yesterday. I think he's going to get some more seam stuff. Plus, because the Packers if you're going to face the Packers, you're going to see some cover 2 stuff, or you're going to see a man under with cover 2 over the top. As soon as that safety comes down, they got to be able to exploit that. Corner blitzes. So here's the part that you miss with a young receiver. You get a nickel blitz, and that receiver just continues off and does his route, doesn't do a slant. Teams are going to keep doing that. So they got to be able to recognize that, hey, I got a nickel blitz here. I got to break off my route, run a slant, or my quarterback's going to be in 2 pieces. So some of those things aren't happening, and they're not getting open off the line of scrimmage as well. So they got to make themselves open, and that's why they're going to continue to run the ball and get guys in bad positions and play action pass. And and listen, and Rodgers missed a couple yesterday. I'm sure he wished he had back too. It's a bunch of stuff, and the frustration part for him is, he's used to having a couple of receivers that have been with him for a while and know the little things, and now he's got Alan Lazard, and you can say what you want, great guy, super guy, good teammate, good guy. I'd like to have him blocks well, but he's not very good off the ball, and he's not really explosive. So with him, you want to catch the ball and hurry up and fall down so you don't fumble. So that's just. But I think the tight end is going to become a bigger part of this team's offense going forward.
Always good, my friend. I appreciate it, and we will talk again next week. But what an interesting game, and obviously an early one in London next week.
Yeah, I hope you had a good time in lacrosse.
I had a great time. I put on almost 1,000 miles in a few days. We went to lacrosse. We ended up coming back. We went to Grafton after that. We were up in Cedarburg, then back in Milwaukee, then up to Green Bay and back, and had an absolute blast. Did a lot of stuff. I think it was like 12 bars in 3 days, and Oktoberfest and games, and it was a whirlwind. There's no doubt about it. It was a lot of fun, though.
Or how about the other fun part for me, it was right after halftime when I got a text message that, hey, I know a friend of mine works down there at Madison. He sent me a text and he's like, hey, Chris is gone. So that was like the buzz in the press box in the third quarter there when that whole thing fell down. What are your listeners saying? I
think a lot of people felt it was time, first and foremost. So I understand that. I think the next aspect is you got to get it right. Can Jim Leonhard turn things around? But my biggest argument is, and always will be, Ohio State wasn't Ohio State until they became Ohio State. Alabama wasn't anything until Nick Saban came in, got them a championship, and now look at where they're at. Don't accept sub-mediocrity or above mediocrity. Strive to be the best and put the resources to it. It's time. You're Wisconsin. And if you're not going to do it, quit telling people you're chasing championships.
I agree. And I think the hard part for a lot of people, even for myself, when I'm looking at this, you got to take the X's and O's out of it. The world, it's a different format. You can get the best coordinator on offense and the best coordinator on defense. The head coach's job has got to be able to navigate this NIL mess and be able to get that recruiting machine going. And you got to do it by winning ball games. So, Jim Leonhard might be a great defensive coordinator, but is he a head coach that can navigate this new world of NIL and in this new culture of young men coming up? God, that's the question that's got to be asked. I think you just get the best head coach, the guy who's going to be able to do all that, then let him hire the best coordinators and let those guys coach, and he'd be the head coach. It's more of a job now than coaching. That's kind of sad, but that's just how I see it. I don't think Nick Saban does much coaching. I think, or any of those big guys, I don't think they're great coaches. I just think they know how to turn on that recruiting machine and get good assistants.
Yeah.
Like Belichick.
Couldn't agree more. Good stuff, man. I appreciate it, pal.
All right, man.
Talk to you later. There you go. That's Eric Branchek of the Green Bay Press-Gazette joining us for a couple of minutes, giving us his thoughts as to the Packers win yesterday. You tell me the good out of yesterday's win. Do you agree with Eric? He's like, hey, look, you can win like this. You're going to win like this, specifically in the postseason when you talk about the weather being what it is and you're going to run the football and all that. So, yeah, you can win like this. Sure you can. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. Hit us up. By all means, go ahead and do so. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at Forgotten Fire Winery. And I saw they had a big celebration up there this past week, anniversary celebration this past weekend. It looked like a blast, and I really wished I could have been there. But what a great place up in Peshtigo, Wisconsin. That is Forgotten Fire Winery. They said thanks to their whole staff. They had really nice pictures over on Facebook. But if you are in the within shouting distance of my voice and you're at a grocery store, a wine store, liquor store, then call them out and say, where is Forgotten Fire Winery? Where are the wines? And if they say, we don't carry that, say why, or leave, or can you? And check it out. They have everything, whites, reds, rosés, ciders this time of year. They have all kinds of terrific stuff. That is our friends at Forgotten Fire Winery. They are the official winery of the Bill Michaels Sports Talk Network. I like saying that. Good people there, too. Again, you got Jake and Chris and Melissa and their entire staff. Such good people. Keep supporting local. Keep supporting Wisconsin. Keep supporting ForgottenFireWinery.com. More of the Bill Michaels Show next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Wisconsin isn't snobby, snooty, or pretentious. It's Midwestern charm at its finest. And that's exactly what Forgotten Fire Winery in Peshtigo is all about. Fun in a bottle without the attitude. You can find their full wine and cider lineup in their tasting room or in liquor and grocery stores throughout the state. The winery is a great place to get away for wine and cider tastings, great live music, and private events all year long. Remember, any time is a great time for Forgotten Fire wines and ciders. Wisconsin wine made from Wisconsin people.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Really great people. I mean, great people out in the Johnson Creek area. That is J&L Tire Service. Now, it's Goodyear. You can see it from the highway, and it's just north of the highway and the Johnson Creek exit right off of 94. But they do everything from the soccer mom minivans to the salesperson's cars to your normal everyday automobile, all the way up to a big rig out on the road. They handle everything. They've got the facilities to handle everything. Tires, brakes, tune-ups, whatever it is you need, a major engine repair or major brake repair, body repair, all that kind of stuff on your big rig. They can do a lot of different things. So check out our buddies out there, Chad and Lyle, and they're great philanthropic people as well. They do a lot of stuff in the community. So I really highly recommend them. JNLtire.com. That's JNLtire.com. They're not only in the Johnson Creek area, they're in Watertown as well. So 2 different locations. JNL Tire Service at both. You can see them right from the highway. 877-867-1670. 877-867-1670. I thought yesterday, if you want to talk about the good out of the Green Bay Packers, I thought the special teams were solid. I thought the offense in the second half was pretty good. I think the run game got it going. I still can't fathom for the life of me on the 50-yard scoring drive that the Packers go in the first half of that game. They go 6 plays, 50 yards. It was in the second quarter. It was to start really the second quarter drive. 6 plays, 50 yards. Now, the one thing that was extremely unique about that particular series, the third series for the Green Bay Packers, was Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, and then Christian Watson. Aaron Jones for 10 yards. Aaron Jones for 5 yards. A.J. Dillon for 3 yards. Aaron Jones for 7. Aaron Jones for 10. Christian Watson with the end around 15 yards, touchdown. They went 50 yards in 6 plays, and they ran it down their throats. Ran the ball. They did it, right? The very next series, shotgun, Aaron Rodgers goes deep. Shotgun, A.J. Dillon up the middle, gets stuffed for 2 yards. Shotgun, go deep again to Allen Lazard. Don't understand it. I get it. You're running the ball. You might have the ability to take a shot, one shot. But I just, the old adage in football is you keep doing it until they stop you. And the Packers were running the ball almost at will. I give Bakhtiari credit, too. He won a couple of series and then off, then a couple of series and then off. And I think he played the entire second half of the game, if I'm not mistaken. Played pretty well. Saw him get a couple of solid kick-out blocks on the run game. Some decent protection. Elton Jenkins struggled at the right tackle position. The middle was better. The middle of the interior of the offensive line was better. I saw Kenny Clark a couple of times run down the play from behind, but also I saw Kenny Clark get beat up a little bit up front. So it wasn't the best of days in the trenches for the Packers defensively either. But, and that's just, again, I try to do as much focusing as I can. I haven't gone back and looked at everything, but I just, some things were good and some things were bad. But I also look at the special teams, and I give them a big kudos, which have gotten do you get more consistently good feelings about the special teams. You know what I mean? As the special teams go on and continually progress, you feel better and better about the direction Rich Bisaccia and company are going. The return game, it's not prolific. They're not busting big plays, but they're getting some blocks. They're getting some yardage. That average is creeping up a little bit, which is nice. Downfield protection's been pretty good. They had one gap that they allowed a return yesterday, but for the most part, really solid. Really solid. And then obviously Pat O'Donnell, I mean, come on. Late in the ball game, they needed a big punt, and they get it. He pins New England on their own 2. I mean, huge moment in the game. Huge moment in the game, flipping the field. And then obviously the process, Mason Crosby splitting the uprights and getting the win. I thought there was a lot to really be excited about. Let's go to Brett. Brett, welcome to the program, The Bill Michaels Show. What's going on, man?
Hey, Bill, how are you?
Good. What you thinking?
Well, you mentioned that running. Last year and the last couple of years, my big complaint is you never seen them run it more than 3 times in a row. And I think teams can see patterns, especially in the shotgun. You could almost assume that Rodgers is going to throw.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they could line it up and go solid run, I think they're going to be better off. Sometimes I think if you watch the Patriots, they loaded up with that extra lineman tackle or as tight end eligible, and they were just going to pound it at us. And that between that guard tackle spot, they ran that just like crazy. I couldn't believe how successful they were at that one run between the guard and tackle.
Right.
But we were doing that too. And in times before, if you look back in the playoff game, the year they lost to Tampa, they ran the ball all the way down to the 5-yard line, and then they throw it 3 times to Devontae. It's very predictable when you do that.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I also know that, again, I don't want to pound the dead horse, but if it's working, why do you get away from it? I get you're trying to set things up later down the road. That I understand completely. I understand it. But we have screamed forever that when things are working, why do they go away from what's working? Now, maybe New England made an adjustment of some type and they just said we couldn't run the ball anymore. But I'm just like, wow, all of a sudden you just get away from what got you there, and it's happened more than one time.
Well, yeah, and when I coach high school football, if we ran that play and the other team didn't stop it, we're going to keep running it until we stop it. And I think it just makes sense. I don't think you sit there and go, well, I'm smarter than that. You just say, well, no, try to stop it. Once you stop it, we'll try something else.
Right.
I really like that misdirection running when they hand off to Christian Watson, or it looked like a couple times. I'll give you an example. The week before, they handed off up the middle. They didn't get the touchdown. And Rodgers said afterwards, I could have run it in myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at times that there's going to be some times here where he could just fake the run and take off, or hand it a pitch. They did that a couple times where they pitch it out to the running back or the wide receiver coming around. I like that. I think that's a great movement on the ball.
Yeah. Yep, no doubt. Good stuff, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for the phone call. Let's do this. We're going to step away. We're going to take a quick break. We got to do this because we're running a little bit late, but hang in there. We got a lot more to come. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at Kunis RV. Kunis RV, Wisconsin's fastest growing RV dealer in the state of Wisconsin and beyond. And as a matter of fact, I saw they have a dealership now just on the border out in La Crosse in Minnesota. I was driving north last night on 43 and coming back, a big, new, beautiful building right off of 43 as you head towards Green Bay. Kunis is everywhere, and they continue to grow. They continue to acquire dealerships, which means they also continue to acquire different brands. They carry just about every big brand in the country. They take consignments. They have great trades. They have a huge inventory, and I noticed the inventory has grown. No reason not to give our friends at Kunis RV, or just shop Kunis.com if you're in the market for a new car or truck as well. Shop Kunis.com. Shop Kunis.com. Kunis. Kunis. That is KunisRV.com and ShopKunis.com. Both great ways to be a participant in their system. Stay tuned. We got more of the Bill Michaels Show next.
Ready? This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. Wheel Spin Wednesdays. They have it going on at Potawatomi Hotel Casino. 5-time slot points as well. You can warm your hands up the cooler months. Play slots with your club card. You're good to go. And also don't forget that 250 winners each Friday. It's a frenzy of nonstop wins. Friday nights, 250 Firekeepers Club members going to win $200 in the reward play as well. Will you be next? For all the details, go to paysbig.com. That is paysbig.com. Again, paysbig.com. And you're good to go. That's simple. Over there at our friends at Potawatomi Hotel Casino. All right, time now. Stock up, stock down. Ben Kenny, do we have some music for this?
It's time for Stock Up, Stock Down.
The key feature here is speed, trying to follow what's going on in the market so that we can anticipate and catch trends as they occur.
From this week of football.
Stock up and stock down. I'm going to step away from the pro ranks. I'm going to step right into the Wisconsin Badgers. Kind of a both. Stock down, obviously Paul Christ out. Stock up, Jim Leonard. And the ability to take over the program. I like the fact, stock up-wise, that Chris McIntosh made the move when he felt things were just getting away. He didn't wait to the end of the season. He didn't allow everybody to scream and yell and go crazy. He started anew, so to speak. Now we'll see where it goes, but stock up, I'm going to go with the Wisconsin Badgers, Ben.
Well, I mean, I will include Saturday. That was an embarrassment. That's the most flat I've seen them play, I don't know, in my life. Brett Bielema also looked like a pumpkin, so you could put that in stock up or stock down. It's up to you. I don't know. It's interesting. I'll go to college, and maybe this will be a little ploy to get the Wisconsin program back on track. Mr. Lance Leipold at Kansas is undefeated. They are hosting game day. They are ranked. They're hosting TCU. And I think the only matchup of unbeaten teams in the Big 12. The Big 12 is winnable, and it's crazy. Someone asked me earlier today, why would Lance Leipold leave Kansas? Because it's Kansas. Right. What he's doing is ridiculous.
I completely agree. Lance, stock up, big time. Let's go also some stock down. When you watched football this weekend, first of all, Harbaugh over with the Baltimore Ravens stock down. I can't believe he didn't take the points and didn't try to just win that game and allow his defense, although his defense did not play well in the entire second half of that game, giving up 17 points to the Buffalo Bills. But I'm going to say stock down. He had the points. They were right there, was sitting right in front of you. And you know Josh Allen is going to get you in field goal range. So at the very least, you were playing for the tie. And instead, he decided to allow Lamar Jackson and company to try to do their thing, and it didn't pan out. Stock down. Bad move by Harbaugh. The Ravens ended up losing the game 23-20 on a winning field goal by the Buffalo Bills because Josh Allen took them right down and got a score.
Bill, stock down. You could speak to this more than me because you were there yesterday. There was some chatter online about some Packers fans making noise on 4th and 3 when the offense had the ball. I wanted to get your thoughts on it because I wasn't there and the volume wasn't all the way up on my television, but I checked on Twitter. Apparently there were some questions about noise being made when the Packers had the football.
I think there was a good amount of Patriots fans in the stands. I was out walking around now. I have said this before. Kristen is a Patriots fan. She grew up a Patriots fan in Rhode Island. So she had on her jersey and everything, you know. So when we were walking around, and we were over by D2 and Stadium View and in Drewzy's and in the Bart Starr area there, a lot of Patriots fans. So while the noise, I agree, might have been, you know, Packers fans trying to drown out Patriots fans, I think there was a lot of Patriots fans in attendance. I don't think it was just the oh, by the way, the fact that it was just Packers fans being that stupid. I think it was Patriots fans that were in the house too. That's just my assessment. I could hear it. I agree. But I think there was more than a few. I think there was more than a few Patriots fans in the house. So I don't blame it all on the Packers fans, so to speak.
Gotcha. I'll go stock up real quick. The Eagles are 4-0. They're undefeated.
Right? Kudos to your Eagles, man. How about that? Eagles get the win. They knocked off the pesky Jacksonville team in Doug Peterson's return to Philadelphia, and they get them 29-21, putting up 9 points in the fourth quarter to get that win. But again, they have 2 quarters in which they were basically shut out. But a nice job by Doug Peterson. And I have more faith. Jacksonville goes to 2-2 on the season. I have more faith in Jacksonville than I have in a long time. But isn't it amazing how that team looks with a real NFL head coach at the helm? Even though they didn't win, how much better Jacksonville looks and how much belief there is in Jacksonville now, as opposed to the fact that the Eagles are sitting at 4-0, the only undefeated team in the National Football League. Let me go stock down. The Denver Broncos, they just look bad. I don't know how else to put it. For a team that the West, we can even see stock down for the West. Even though Kansas City was supposed to be challenged this year, after that little dust up on the sideline between Eric Bieniemy and Patrick Mahomes last week, you thought, this might be the beginning of the end. Instead, they come out and they could have ran for 65 points against the Buccaneers, and they didn't. But 41-31, they knock off the Buccaneers, and they just beat them up. And there's nobody in the West right now that looks capable of catching the Kansas City Chiefs. The Raiders are 1-3. While they put up 32 points, still not great. The Broncos, they're just bad. I don't know how else to put it, but they're a 2-2 team that's pretty bad. Probably one of the worst 2-2 teams that exist this season. And then you've got the Chargers. They got a win over the Texans, but the Chargers are still banged up. They're trying to come back to form. They put up 34 points. They get a nice win, and they did it all throughout a multitude of scores throughout the game, but they only put up 7 points in the second half of that contest, which is a little disappointing. But the Chargers, I don't think they're ready to challenge yet, but they're probably the closest out of the rest of the teams in the West. But the West overall is not the powerhouse that many predict. I did, I should say, everybody, but I predicted it would be. So stock down for the Denver Broncos and more so the West division of the AFC.
Gotcha. We're going to come back to football in a second. I had to note this. The biggest stock down I saw, I don't know if you've been monitoring this or if you monitor weird sports stories. The competitive fishing world took a big hit yesterday when a massive scandal began. There are guys winning tournaments in Ohio stuffing fish with weights. They cut the fish open, put little lead weights in them, and fish fillets in order to make the fish they catch weigh more. And they caught them at the end. They cut the fish open, taking out the weights. There is chaos in the fishing world. So it's a tough day to be a professional fisherman.
It's the amount of at least they're not sticking Benoit balls or something like that or anal beads into the fish. You know, I'm glad that the fish aren't being weighed on the scale and the scale is vibrating at the time after we go through the old chess scandal area. And they're not combining cheating in both with the same means. Real quick, one more, and I'm going to go stock up. I love the Detroit Lions. I'm rooting for the Detroit Lions to get some wins. They got beat yesterday, and normally that'd be stock down. Their secondary is terrible, and they gave up 48 points. But damn it, they're scoring points. And at least right now, if you're a Detroit Lion fan, you're at least excited. Jared Goff yesterday threw for almost 378 yards, 4 touchdowns, had a quarterback rating of 121.5. And Ja Williams yesterday, 19 carries, 100 yards. TJ Hockenson, the tight end, 179 yards and a couple of touchdowns on 8 catches. It's exciting football. It's just their secondary sucks. They'll get it eventually. And they're still a pesky team, but I liked watching Hard Knocks, what I could see, and I liked watching the Detroit Lions because I think eventually they're going to get it. Just right now, their secondary is terrible. Anything else?
I echo all of those statements. My final one, Craig Counsell bunted away a baseball game yesterday, and it is largely flying under the radar. But the Brewers, they've blown like 12 saves since the trade deadline. It's ridiculous the ways they find to lose late in games. The magic number's 1. The season is pretty much over. And Craig Counsell kind of got news dumped by Paul Chryst, by the Packers winning. But man, what a collapse.
Yeah. It's and we've talked about it for a while. I'm beating a dead horse. I understand it. but we are watching them basically bloodlet this season after the trade. And that's exactly what happened. Let's do this. We're going to step away. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We got a lot more to get to. Don't forget, coming up in the next hour, we're going to hear a lot from Mike Clemens. Sounds from inside Lambeau. Stay tuned. We got more after this.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Gene Adela in the title tones featuring Wayne Larrivee, Jason Wilde, and Mark Tauscher. Game Day Bus, take 47.
Let's all take the Game Day Bus
to Titletown.
Let's go. Wayne, Tausch, Wilde, haven't you been practicing all year? What if I said Pella fans can get 0% interest for 48 months on any replacement project right now?
Yeah! And there is your Pella.
Can he say that? Isn't that trademarked?
His paycheck for this says otherwise. Speaking of catchphrases, we call this the Pella Now Pay Later option. Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin's experts stop by for an in-home consultation. They'll help you choose the perfect windows for your home. The installation is completed with no hassle or mess, leaving only perfect results while you put no money down, make no payments, and no interest for up to 4 years. Schedule your free consultation now at PellaWI.com.
Certain restrictions apply. See showroom for details. Expires 10/31/2022.
This fall, it's Give and Take at Potawatomi. Thursday nights, give yourself a shot at winning slot play or up to $5,000. And with 60 winners each week, you've got a good chance to take home your share of over $400,000 in prizes. Just play with your club card October 1st through November 17th for entries. The Give and Take Game Show, each Thursday and only at Potawatomi Hotel and Casino. More at pacebig.com/give and take. Must be 21 years old and a club member to play.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Now, in Green Bay, here's Mike Clemens.
The Packers held on to beat the Patriots 27-24. The lead changed 6 times in the game before Green Bay went 77 yards on a 12-play drive to set up Mason Crosby for a winning field goal 31 yards out as time expired in overtime. Packers wide receiver Randall Cobb.
Find a way to win a football game, man. It's hard to win in this league, and so many different guys made an impact on that drive to put us in that situation for Mason to go out there and kick the field goal to win it. It's a team game, and our defense played really well. Our special teams flipped the field in many situations, and they came up big there at the end with the field goal.
The Patriots lost quarterback Brian Hoyer to a concussion early in the game. Third-string rookie Bailey Zappi came in to lead New England's offense with a quarterback rating of 107.4. Head coach Bill Belichick dialed up a defense that kept Aaron Rodgers and his receivers timing out of sync. Rodgers throwing only the 4th pick 6 of his career.
Bill's, great coach, great scheme. The guys made some plays. Felt like we got into a rhythm in the second half with some of the play calls. I settled in and usually don't have 2 terrible halves. So kind of returned to the form I expect for myself, and we started moving the football.
Bill Belichick.
In the end, Rodgers is just too good. He made some throws that only Rodgers can make. We had pretty good coverage on some of those, and he just, he's just too smart, too good, too accurate. And in the end, he got us. We couldn't quite do enough.
So the Packers improved to 3-1 and head to London to play the Giants, who beat the Bears. New England falls to 1-3 and in last place in the AFC East. Patriots safety Devin McCourtney on life after Tom Brady.
2020 was 7-9. Last year we had a couple runs, but I think to get blown out in the playoffs, I wouldn't say hasn't always been Super Bowls and AFC Championship. So. Just got to keep battling, keep fighting, and try to find our way.
That's the Patriots' Devin McCourty. In Green Bay, I'm Mike Clemens on The Bill Michaels Show.
You got to hit it back.
Aaron, how you doing?
Good. What's on your mind?
Well, first, let me preface my question by just, I listen to you pretty much every day, and I've been listening to you since you were back on the PM shift, way down on the 3-number AM dial. So,
okay.
So I'm not trying to call you out or anything like that. My question is last week, they played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady, arguably the best quarterback in football history. Tampa's supposed to be a Super Bowl contender. And they barely win, but they win in regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And your post-game show last year, man, you pissed on almost every Cheerio in the bowl. Now this week, they play New England, 3rd-string quarterback, team that's really not supposed to do much this year, and you kind of gave them passing grades. I'm just wondering what you saw between the 2 games that gave them better score this week as opposed to last week.
Well, that's a great question. Let me do this. We're at the top of the hour. I promise I'll get right to it coming back. So stay tuned. About a minute and a half away. I appreciate the phone call. So why the difference in tone from last week to this week? And I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that coming up. Stick around. Hang in there. Another hour yet to go. Also, Mike Clemens going to join us coming up here in about 15, 20 minutes. where we're going to break down the Packers game from yesterday for the remainder of the next hour. Stay tuned. A lot more of the Bill Michaels Show yet to come. We'll be back right after this.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the day after the Badgers would lose Saturday 35-10 to Illinois at Camp Randall, Wisconsin would part ways with their head coach, Paul Chryst. McIntosh said he had an emotional conversation with Chryst, and it was a tough decision to make, but it's what was best for the program.
I would just comment more holistically on where we're at. The expectations of our program at Wisconsin are to win championships. And I felt that it was time. It was the right time to make a change to pursue those.
Jim Leonard is now the interim head coach. Wisconsin now travels to Northwestern to take on the Wildcats on Saturday. To the NFL, Aaron Rodgers would bounce back from a dreadful first half to help the Packers lead Mason Crosby down the field in overtime to kick a field goal as time expired to beat the New England Patriots 27-24. Head coach Matt LaFleur is just happy they found a way to win and move to 3-1 in the season.
There was a lot of adversity throughout the course of the game, and our guys, stuck together. And they're not always going to be pretty wins, and I'm okay with that. You guys can criticize us. That's cool. But bottom line is we found a way to win.
Up next for the Packers, they'll head to London to take on the Giants Sunday.
Want to save even more at Fleet Farm? Well, now you can with Fleet Rewards. It's free to sign up, and there's no credit card required. Using Fleet Rewards is easy. Earn points every time you shop. Plus, get exclusive member offers, birthday and anniversary perks, free tire rotations, and more. Download the Fleet Farm app or create an account at fleetfarm.com/rewards to start earning points today. Fleet Farm, proudly serving the Midwest since 1955.
Following their loss to the Marlins, 4-3 in 12 innings on Sunday, the Milwaukee Brewers' playoff chances are dwindling. The Brewers are 2 games behind the Phillies for the third NL wildcard spot with only 3 games to play, and the Phillies owning the tiebreaker. Brewers and Diamondbacks get underway tonight from AmFam Field. First pitch is at 6:40. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
Welcome back. Good to have you on a Monday. A lot of Badger football, a lot of Packers football. This last hour, a lot of Packers football. We'll catch up on some of the emails and such regarding the Badgers, but before we get Mike Clemens in here. But we got a lot to talk about still. 877-867-1670. Nick writes, any pictures of the John Deere striping from the lawn striping kit that I bought? Not yet. I plan on hopefully getting out there today. After I get off the air, I've kind of neglected the lawn a little bit, so I'll get into that. Going back to the last hour and the call that we had from GD out in Madison just before we went to the top of the hour, and he asked why, after complaining about the win over the Buccaneers, why am I not, kind of in the same mode after a kind of ugly win against New England? It's not that I'm going passive on it. It's just, first of all, people say, well, I'm too negative. And I always try, I don't look at it as being negative or positive. I just try to be honest about things. I think there's good and bad. When you win, you do enough good to win. So you got to recognize that. After the Tampa Bay game, I just thought that team I think they played rather poor. Now, the circumstances were different because of weather, first and foremost, and the way they had opportunities and then kind of got away from it, the mistakes that they made. This game was just an ugly dogfight game. And as Aaron Rodgers said, we had no business letting that game get to that point, and not to disparage Bailey Zappi, but he's the third string quarterback. You got a third string, just drafted quarterback who normally, had it not been for the fact that Mac Jones went down, he's normally not even on the active roster. And this guy's coming in playing well. They should have, could have blown him out, but didn't. They made enough mistakes to keep the game close. But also there was some good. You continue to see the emergence of Romeo Doubs. Now he's got to get better, but he will, you would assume. Christian Watson's got to get better, but he will, you would assume. I think defensively speaking, they had some injuries that hurt them. I also think that they played a soft zone at times, maybe too soft. Some guys up front got beat. It wasn't overwhelmingly consistent. But last night was not a pretty win. But sometimes in an ugly win where you should beat a team, you're supposed to beat a team, you're expected to beat a team, and they punch you in the face, you don't need me screaming and yelling about the sky is falling when you get a win and things look bad. I think just by the tone of Aaron Rodgers in the post-game press conference, you could tell that was not a good win. The Packers, defensively speaking, I know that there was a group of people who are like, are you kidding me? And they gave up 24. And well, wait a minute. One was 7, and that was a pick 6. So again, the defense held a team to under 20 points. That's normally a victory. You held Tom Brady to 12. It's normally a victory. I think they're doing enough right now to get wins. And what I want to see is this team get better. And the positive is special teams won you a game. They didn't cost you a game. So they're putting a lot on the defense, and the defense has not broken. They're putting a lot on special teams, and special teams has been, albeit it's not, the return game is not great, and they're not getting, a massive amount of yardage. But the punting team and field goal and kickoff, they're flipping the field. They're doing what they're supposed to do. So I'm ecstatic with that. And I'm not because it's number 1 in the league, but because it's not last in the league. And I keep thinking to myself, at some point, the offense has to get right? At some point, everybody's going to be ready to go. Christian Watson's going to get better. Alan Lazard will begin to get open. Romeo Doubs will continue to get better. I think they're going to rely more and more and more on Robert Tonyan. But make no mistake about it, this is it. I think you have to adjust via play calling to get it better, but this is it. Unless they pick up somebody along the way that's sitting out there right now, this is it. And as Aaron Rodgers stated, you can't continue to win this way, and you can't win in the postseason this way. So I'm waiting to see what else it is they're going to do. That's it. That's the synopsis. And like I said all along, for as much as I do want to care about the regular season, I don't care about the regular season. Get to the postseason and show me what you can do. But I don't think it's my job, but my own instinct is to say, what does this team need to do to be better that's not going to get them bounced out of the postseason? So far, special teams has held up their end of the bargain. Defensively, they got to play better. You got to get everybody back and healthy. It's going to be an interesting plane trip because usually when guys have concussions, they don't like to travel you. And now you've got to put a guy like Adrian Amos on a plane and take him over to London. Hopefully Jair is able to come back this week. I think it was a smart move not playing Jair. I don't think you had to have him. You saw how things kind of deteriorated with that center fielder, with that guy, that knowledge in the middle of Adrian Amos after going down with a concussion. And I watched him come to the sidelines when they put him in the blue tent. It was almost immediate. They handed the helmet out. And usually that's the sign of don't give him his helmet. He's not going back in. So you can kind of tell that he was done for the day. And he knew When he got up, he waved to the sidelines like, come here. He got up a little wobbly. He knew. So hopefully it's not severe and it doesn't keep him out for a long period of time and he's able to come back. I think the fact that you saw Quay Walker get into the mix, I like that. So there's some things that are good. Kenny Clark did not have his best day. Wasn't a bad day, but not his best day by any stretch of the imagination. So overall, not bad. Not great, but not bad. Quay Walker continues to play well. Rashawn Gary yesterday had a game, man. He was kind of a one-man wrecking crew throughout. But up front, Jerron Reed, I thought, played pretty solid. Devontae Wyatt getting some snaps. So I'm not overwhelmingly disappointed, but they still got a lot of room for improvement. A lot of room for improvement. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. If you want to hit us up, by all means, go ahead and do so. Again, 877-867-1670. Max says, when is Devontae Wyatt going to get more than a couple of snaps a game? Yeah, he got 5 yesterday. Made a play, was in the right place, the right time, got it. But again, he's got, with the guys up front, the best, the best part about it is you don't have to force him in. Because you've got Jerron Reed, you've got Dean Lowry, you've got Kenny Clark. Who's he going to displace at this point? They can give him some opportunities, but in big moments, who's he going to displace? I don't think it's a matter of he just is not good and doesn't get it. I think it's a matter of the guys that are ahead of him are as good as or better and have the experience. That's all. Nothing more. As Rick says, they've had a couple of kicks down at the 2 or 1 yard line over the last couple of weeks. And true. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670 if you want to give us any thoughts. And by the way, let me say this too, defensively speaking, one of the big statistics I pay attention to, other than turnovers, is always third down possession. The Packers yesterday on offense, 42.9%. 42.9%, which normally win you a lot of games. And they held the New England Patriots to 27.3%. Normally, that's going to win you a lot of games. It's just a couple of the turnover, the pick six, and the drop pass, and a couple of things that just didn't go in their direction. That's it. Otherwise, you could be talking about a completely different scenario coming out of that game where the Packers get kind of a blowout win. So I'm good with that. I'm excuse me. I don't think they're that far away. Number one, Pack Attack says, my opinion, the drop-off in the offensive line talent this year is huge compared to what we're used to in the past at Wisconsin. Looking back at Ron Dane when he was getting all of those massive yards, he was running through holes you can drive trucks through. Every one of his linemen were pro players, and the great Ron Dane did nothing in the pros. We can't keep our own. Wisconsin's top high school players from going to Ohio State and over to Wisconsin to get over the top. Who is going to get us over the top recruiting is really the bottom line from Packer Dude. That's really turned off by Badger football. That's from Packer Dude. There you go. Nick says, do you think firing Paul Chryst could potentially turn into a Nebraska situation, firing a coach that consistently has won, and then it turns into a complete dumpster fire? Nick, God, I hope not. God, I hope not. You are right, though. There is always that concern anytime you fire somebody of what's to come. But you have to believe you can get better. And the will and the want and the resources to get better have to be there. Steve says, when I heard the news about Paul Chryst, I wasn't overly surprised by the firing, but rather the timing of it. With Chris McIntosh being a former Badger star, he has seen some of the things that perhaps we haven't. I also think that Jim Leonard is the front runner for the position, and McIntosh wants to lock him up before other schools come calling. I will say that the defense has pretty much stunk over the last couple of weeks. Time will tell where the program goes. The Packers got the win yesterday, albeit in ugly fashion. The fans were chastising Goody when he drafted Rashawn Gary, and they're now eating crow. I'm one of them. I agree with that. And I think if there's anybody out there that says anything else about Goody's pick of Rashawn Gary, I think at this point you're erroneous. I don't know what else to say. Playing at a very high level, should be rewarded with a contract extension. With the Patriots lining up with six offensive linemen is the new recipe for teams like the Giants to go after the Packers defense. With Saquon Barkley is tough enough, but could even get tougher with 6 offensive linemen. The Brewers are in the ground with the dirt being pushed into the hole. I, for one, think that Craig Counsell blew the game Saturday with the handling of the bullpen. That team is tough to watch right now. It's all or nothing, mostly nothing. And their approach at the plate, the offseason, also is going to be interesting. That's our buddy Steve listening to us in Richfield. Steve, appreciate it, man. Let's do this. We're going to step out, take a break, and when we come back, Mike Clemens going to be joining us. We'll talk with him about what went down yesterday. Also, big game this past weekend down at the Fiserv Forum. You had some pro hockey exhibition-wise in town. Good weekend for the Milwaukee Admirals to kind of showcase some hockey in this area. They had a good time. I know that. Go to MilwaukeeAdmirals.com for single-game tickets, whether it's a group outing, promotional outings. Go to MilwaukeeAdmirals.com. That is MilwaukeeAdmirals.com. Get your season tickets now for some good hockey. More of the Bill Michaels Show next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Gene Adela in the title tones featuring Wayne Larrivee, Jason Wilde, and Mark Tauscher. Game Day Bus, take 47.
Let's all take
the Game Day bus
to Titletown. Let's go.
Wayne, Tausch, Wilde, haven't you been practicing all year? What if I said Pella fans can get 0% interest for 48 months on any replacement project right now?
Yeah! And there is your Pella.
Can he say that? Isn't that trademarked?
His paycheck for this says otherwise. Speaking of catchphrases, we call this the Pella Now, Pay Later option. Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin's experts stop by for an in-home consultation. They'll help you choose the perfect windows for your home. The installation is completed with no hassle or mess, leaving only perfect results while you put no money down, make no payments, and no interest for up to 4 years. Schedule your free consultation now at PellaWI.com.
Certain restrictions apply. Showroom for details expires 10/31/2022.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
For the win from 31, Crosby, right down the middle.
And the 101,000 people in Green Bay breathe with a sigh of relief.
They're a good team. We faced a really good Patriots team, and we play in the NFL. I mean, the wind kind of was dying down there late in the game, so I just told them if we get inside the 45, I'm going to give one a ride. So I think anything 60 and in, we were probably going to try, but again, we got that first down. I think it would have at the 30-yard line or so, and then we just ran that ball and it got us down to a 31-yarder, which was exceptional.
Welcome back to the program. Mike Clemens, brought to you by the Bay Motel, greenbay.com. That is Bay Motel, clean, quiet, cozy, comfortable, all that kind of good stuff, plus the Bay Family Restaurant, serving it up, home-style cooking all the time. That is Bay Motel, greenbay.com, Bay Motel, greenbay.com, and book your reservation now for whatever weekend you have going on up in Green Bay. Mike Clemens now joining us. And Mike, I watched Mason Crosby come out at halftime, and he was kicking from 52 and splitting the uprights. He did like a couple of them, 51, 52, 53, but all of them went through the uprights and all of them cleared it by about 3 to 5 yards. So I kind of figured what he just stated, that 60 and in they try, but more so maybe 50 and in was probably pretty solid.
Isn't it amazing, though, that he had knee surgery this summer and he's, still out there kicking at 37,
Right?
38 years old?
I thought that was a big
Pretty
redemption for
appreciative.
him. I really do. I when he kicked it and he knew it was going through the uprights, you could almost see him go, yes, yes. You know what I mean?
There was one very straightforward moment of honesty from Brian Gutekunst at Combine when we were talking about, he had a lot of these kickers in for tryouts. I mean, what's going on there? And he's like, well, no, but he said, we still think we got a Super Bowl team. And we're not changing Mason Crosby. It was just very definite about that. We're bringing guys to get a backup in case something happens. But we want Mason Crosby here another year while we still think we got a Super Bowl team. Mr. LaFleur, interesting reaction last night because in his opening statements, he talked about, great resiliency of his team. The challenge of going up against Bill Belichick, who last week, he said Bill Belichick is the best coach in any sport. And I kind of felt that way in our talk leading up to this game. What was really the factors of this game? It's like beating Belichick, because this guy just always comes with prepared teams. He's just a master of it. And so LaFleur was asked, hey, Coach, what do you mean by, the team is favored to win before they even play the game? Is that your team, your players getting overconfident?
I don't think so. I think that's you guys. I think that's the fans. I don't think so. I think we have enough respect for teams in this league that you have to show up and play your best ball. The competitive balance, it's marginal. And you can see it all across the league. There's going to be upsets each and every week. And so I just think it's the outsiders that feel that way too many times. And unless you're in this business, and I don't think you truly can appreciate just the competitive balance that exists in the National Football League.
Mike, I agree with him. There's a competitive balance there. We all know that on any given Sunday is not just a cliche; it's true. I will say more technically, the Romeo Doubs catch that we thought was, but really wasn't. We could all kind of tell that in the press box that wasn't a catch, and so the question is, why was he tossing red flags onto the field at that point when he might have been saving that challenge down the road?
Right, because, there was still some time on the clock where maybe they could have done something there instead of losing that timeout. You're right. I mean, first of all, the Patriots players seem to be pretty clear that, the ball touched the ground. Then I think it was up on the scoreboard at least once, but LaFleur's on the headset. He's talking upstairs. So he was asked after the game, why did he throw that challenge flag on Romeo Doubs, would drop, so the ball hit the ground, and the scoreboard showed that in fact was not a catch.
Yeah, I'm not too proud of that moment. That was an emotional decision, and I think it's a great learning lesson that you can never make those emotional decisions in the heat of the battle. You know better. I mean, you got to survive the ground. Connor Lewis, he's up in my ear. He's up in the box, and he's in my ear, and he said, I don't think so. And he said that we shouldn't challenge it, and just made it an emotional decision. And it was almost like throwing a Hail Mary. And that could have came back and bit us in the butt. And, but again, I'd rather learn from that being on this side. Thank God our guys bailed me out in that regard. But definitely the worst decision of the day by me.
One of the other issues seems to be, and we've heard this time and again, is the fact that, they're wasting timeouts because the play clock is running down. Matt LaFleur is taking a long time to get the calls in because the play call actually is so long, Mike.
They used to use that card so that if LaFleur said 17, then that way, Rodgers wouldn't have to have a 18-syllable play or something like that. And you saw Rodgers the handoffs to Aaron Jones, 20 yards, 12 yards, 10 yards. Then they get to a third down play for some reason, and they just couldn't convert. They were like 3 for 9 on third down. They ended up in the game with 6 for 14 overall. So the timing just seemed to be off, particularly in the first half. And Rodgers later complained that some of the play calls were just too long because they had like 2 plays in them. And LaFleur was asked, should that be shortened?
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially when we're struggling, I think sometimes in those moments you just kind of want to get a little bit of tempo going or whatever, just in and out of the huddle quickly. A lot of those plays, and I thought for sure, you talk about starting the second half, right? A lot of these plays that that have a lot of words are can plays. So if they give you one look, you're trying to get premier play calls in versus whatever look they give you. And you got to give New England a ton of credit because they give you a lot of different looks. And so you could be running some pretty bad plays into those looks. That's kind of how the second half started. So we came out with a can play and they gave us the look for the pass. And I knew just based on how the first half went, I was a little concerned that we were going to get booed out of the stadium if we went 3 and out with 3 consecutive passes. And I definitely said that to our coaches on the headset. I was like, man, we're about to get booed out of here. But thankfully, we made a critical third down throw and catch to Allen on the right sideline on a go ball. Our guys, I guess, bailed me out again right there because I could feel it.
Well, speaking of getting booed out, what the hell? Aaron Rodgers, his 4th pick 6 of his career, which is an extremely low number. But through the pay, it just didn't even look like it ever even had a chance, Mike.
Yeah, and now this is a game where your defense, Rashawn Gary, who we talked about in camp, this guy is coming this year, and here he's on pace for like 20 sacks for the season if he keeps it up. He takes out Brian Hoyer, ends up with a concussion, and then everybody in the press box is trying to look up in the media guide who Bailey Zappi is,
right?
This third string quarterback, and yet the kid's moving the ball up and down the field. until you get another huge play by Rashawn Gary, who hits him, forced fumble, then recovers the ball. So Rodgers has got the ball there, 1st and 10 at his own 31, and then he's scrambling and he misses Cobb. So then they send Lazard down the right sideline, right in front of the Packers bench, and this Jack Jones jumps in front of it, and LaFleur was asked what happened on that play.
Yeah, I'll have to look at it because things happen pretty quickly in the heat of the battle, and in terms of, so it was, and I want to say, was it Jack Jones that picked that off? Yeah, you got to give him a lot of credit. He was playing pretty soft, that we noticed throughout the game, but sometimes those guys are pretty dangerous because they'll play off a long ways, but they'll jump a route. And you got to give him a lot of credit because he made the play.
I get jumping a route, but that thing just looked ugly from the very beginning. And, you never want to get scared, but the run was working. And they had the one drive, Mike, where they never threw a pass, 6 plays, 50 yards. It was Jones, Dillon, Jones, Watson, and they ran that damn thing right down their throats.
Right, which is, this is exactly where Bill Belichick wants them. He wants to get into Aaron Rodgers' head. He wants to take away your pass game. And, Greg Bedard, who covers the Patriots, he thought that basically the Patriots coming to the game saying the Green Bay Packers don't have any speed on the outside. They're not going to give it to Christian Watson. When they did, it was, on the end run, and he got his first touchdown. But they're not going to set him free. So, we can man these guys, and we'll know their formations and jump their routes and get into Aaron Rodgers' head that way. And LaFleur was asked, and so when you came out at halftime, down, what was it, 10-7?
10-7, yeah.
To this kid, did you decide that you had to keep the ball on the ground to get started?
I want to say we definitely were more committed to the run in the second half. I know I'm always asking our guys up top who are charting runs and passes, kind of where we're at. And it was definitely teetering on the heavy side of run. But I think that's just, every game's going to be a little bit different. And it's just about trying to find ways to move the football in order to score points and win a game.
Mike, let's do this. We'll step away. We'll take a quick break, and we'll come back. We'll get more into some of the other aspects, defensively speaking, because this was a defense that had not seen Bailey Zappi and didn't really know a whole lot about him. So we'll talk a little bit about that and how he deemed and how he fared against that defense and what they think they did against him. Stay tuned. We got a lot more of the Bill Michaels Show. Mike Clemens joining us. We'll be back right after this.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
In our own backyard, Humbird, Wisconsin, there's a third-generation family farm, Scholze Family Beef. They've been supplying us with great chop steaks, roast burgers, and so much more for a long time now. But did you know they've got a good old-fashioned family farm store right there on site? I encourage you, drive your truck or your car, that's good. But they've got ATV and UTV trails right there. So moto on up to the family farm store after a great day on the trails and get your grill on. Go to ScholzeFamilyBeef.com. That's Scholze, SCHOLZE, FamilyBeef.com.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Second and 5. And that's Harris. And there it goes again. They were generous there. They were generous. They didn't beat it. Here's the pass by Zappi. Open man at the 10. And strutting in for the touchdown is Devontae Parker. Oh, the Patriots got some kind of break right there.
That was 100% delay of game again.
Did anybody on your sideline notice the clock expiring on Devontae Parker's touchdown play clock going down?
I did not. Jason mentioned that to me prior to coming in here, but I was totally unaware of that in the moment.
Well, it did happen. People were going nuts. The bottom line is they always say you got to play until you hear the whistle, and there wasn't a whistle, so the Packers gave up a score even after the time it expired via the play clock. So lesson learned there. In the meantime, you got Bailey Zappi, who kept, and you probably say who at the beginning of the game, but Bailey Zappi is the one that kept the New England Patriots in the game. Mike Clemens joining us on the hotline. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at Buzzard Billy. Buzzard Billy's fantastic place between that and the Starlight Lounge out in La Crosse. Can't recommend it enough. Thanks to them for giving us their hospitality when we were in La Crosse this past weekend. So, Mike, Bailey Zappi, man, suddenly became the story of the game.
Well, he did. And, of the day, maybe in the NFL. Going back to that pass, though, that nice touch pass from Zappi to Devontae Parker over the right-hand side, in Packers territory, 25-yard touchdown pass. That capped off a 7-play drive, 75 yards in the third quarter. You have 23 assistant coaches. You have all these guys in the box that LaFleur was referring to in the first segment about, what's our run pass distribution, what kind of a defense. Do you think there's somebody who's maybe like watching CBS and on the same page as Jim Nantz and Tony Romo that the play clock expired on a touchdown?
Right.
Maybe that's the time to throw a challenge flag, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just huge. That's a huge miss. And so in the meantime, Brian Hoyer gets knocked out of the game with a concussion by Rashawn Gary, and out comes this number 4 kid from Western Kentucky, and we're looking up like, okay, a 4th-round pick. Who is he? And Darnell Savage, your safety, was said, yeah, so when you guys prepared, you knew that Mac Jones wasn't going to play. How much tape did you watch on Bailey Zappi, who finished with a quarterback rating of 107.4 on taking over for Brian Hoyer?
No. And that's no discredit to him or anything, but just that happening kind of fit the flavor of the week as far as us just adapting on the fly and having to adjust on the sideline. So, me personally, I know I was so focused on watching Hoyer, which was the guy who started today. But like I said before, we didn't even know that he had got injured. It was kind of one of those situations. We were about to punt. We were about to go back on the field, and we saw him walk into the locker room. So we're like, whoever's next, it is what it is.
You know what? It's funny because I listened to the postgame, Mike, and I liked Bailey Zappi acted like he was a veteran. Just in his speak, I was so impressed with him.
Yeah, they fought him in the 4th round, and Belichick, by the way, he had this kid go up there and talk to the media before he went out there, just to let him have that moment in the spotlight. So he talked to the reporters last night about living this NFL dream.
Of course, it was exciting at first. It was a dream come true to play an NFL game. It's obviously not the outcome we wanted at all. I just want to first give credit to all my teammates. They kept me calm. They kept me, getting the nerves out of me. They kept me in my space and cool, calm, and collected. Everybody played well tonight. O-line played well. We ran the ball well. It really just comes down to me. I just got to make more plays, and the outcome's differently.
I guess the question is, how did his teammates feel? That's one of those positions where you come in as a backup to the backup, and you all of a sudden just earn respect, because you play the way you played.
Well, another thing is I'm sure they're going to be talking in New England all this week is until Mac Jones comes back, why didn't you just play this kid, right? Instead of Brian Hoyer? And Hoyer's got to get over a concussion anyway. Matthew Judon is their weak side linebacker who came as advertised. He was given pressure to Rodgers a lot. He got a sack on him. A quarterback hit, had 5 combined tackles. And he even wanted to, give praise to how this kid, Bailey Zappi, kept them in that game.
Give a huge shout out to Zappi, man. The way he stepped up in that game. I don't even believe he took that many reps with the ones, and the way he played and the poise he had. That's amazing for a rookie. That's good for our team. And he was ready. He stepped up, and he did a hell of a job for us.
So he did a fantastic job, and a third-string quarterback kept the New England Patriots in a game in which the Packers were supposed to kind of run away with it. And I guess that really, if you want to look at the story of the game, that's probably one of the top 3 stories of this contest.
Coaching, man. Coaching. It's Belichick. It's the hoodie that kept you in this thing. Like that final drive in regulation when the Patriots had the ball, they didn't want to give the ball back to Aaron Rodgers with time. So they're running the ball, and you kept on hearing, number 61 is eligible. Number 61 is eligible. And you looked that up, and it wasn't even on your flip card. 61 is Marcus Cannon. Okay, he was drafted back in 2011 by New England. Then he spent like a year with the Texans. Bill brought him back. He's now 34, 35 years old, but he's 6'6", 350 pounds. And when they lost Juno Smith, their tight end, on the one side with a leg injury, then Belichick just put out this big dude, to fill out the offensive line because they're just going to, go in jumbo formation and run the ball. Those kinds of things to keep Aaron Rodgers off the field, at least in regulation. And Rodgers was asked, how would you describe this game?
Yeah, win's a win. That was an ugly first half, good second half. But, yeah.
Just quality of win
matter at all? I mean, going against the number 3.
Matters to the coaches because then they can really pick on certain things to emphasize. But, every opponent's different and we all match up differently. Bill's, great coach. He had a great scheme. The guys made some plays. I felt like we got into a rhythm in the second half with some of the play calls. I settled in and usually don't have 2 terrible halves. So kind of returned to the form I expect from myself, and we started moving the football.
What do you kind of say to yourself in the locker after the first half you had? I mean, what goes through your mind? What do you kind of say to yourself at halftime? It's clearly you turned it around from that point forward.
I've been a great player for a long time, so not a whole lot I need to tell myself. Just play better.
Well, I mean, he's right. You just got to play better. I mean, he knows that. But Mike, this game might have been different and the score might have been different. The comfort might have been different had Romeo Doubs come down with that ball and actually completed the catch by going to the ground.
Yeah, Aaron takes a shot to the right sideline there. I think it was like 13, 14 seconds left in the first half, and instead, that was the pick. But he takes that shot to Doubs, and LaFleur gets out the challenge flag, which takes time off the clock because they end up losing that timeout. And Rodgers was asked about that situation.
Yeah, I know Matt feels bad about that. They've lined up in their zero pressure. So we're in empty formation. They have 6 kind of in the box. We had a plan for that. I checked to a different play. And when I checked, they checked out of it to 1 high. I kept the original routes on, which goes on the outside. And I was looking left on the corner. I just felt like Romes was running past him. Now, a little bit of wind. I'd probably underthrown by about a yard. But to me, it looked, I was celebrating. And then Matt Judon was standing next to me, and he goes, "You dropped it." I was like, "Really? What?" And then they showed the replay, and you got to take it all the way to the ground.
How much credit does the Patriots defense deserve?
Yeah, I mean, they played well, did some good things. I felt like we blocked them up pretty good, though. We had 440-plus yards of offense. But, yeah, I always give Bill credit. He's a hell of a coach.
He's right. Obviously, they saw some things, and you had mentioned it earlier, that via the pick six, they saw some things that they could maybe lull the Packers into, Mike.
Jack Jones, number 13, is lining up on Al Lazard. And, years ago, we got a chance to talk to Randy Moss at Super Bowl about his years with Belichick and all the other teams that he played for. What's the difference about New England? He says, Belichick will give you this card with like 5 keys, 5 things you need to do your job. Don't worry about anybody else. Here's the 5 things that we're going to call on you and the things you need to look for in the game. So this Jack Jones kid is a rookie. He's lining up in front of Lazard, little off, the ball, right in front of, LaFleur and everybody. And he picks off Aaron Rodgers and takes him for a pick 6. And he described what he saw on that play.
I was just reading my keys. He threw it outside. I had a chance to make a play on the ball, and, by the blessing of God, I made the play, took it to the house. I couldn't believe it, usually it's hard to score on defense. Just to get a pick, it's hard to get a pick on defense. When I got the pick, I seen nothing but open field, and I just ran. I just kept going.
I give credit to Rodgers. At least he made the effort to maybe try to get down there and catch him, but he just wasn't going to catch him.
I missed that. Did he?
He took off running, but it was very quickly given up when he just looked at him and went, "Okay, you got this one."
Yeah, I couldn't believe how clean it was, and right in front of your bench and stuff. And so Rodgers was asked, this is your 4th career pick 6. You're one of the best ever in the history of the league in terms of not throwing interceptions, and certainly that. What went through your mind when you saw this rookie running down the field with your football?
You really want to know? I do. I've thrown 4 pick 6s and at least 2 of them on that route. So those are frustrating. I mean, I almost missed the throw so badly he overran it. That would have been nice. If I throw the ball, where I was supposed to, he probably picks it right in stride. He kind of had to catch it behind him. But it's frustrating for sure. I felt like before the game, I even said it, hey, I think the only people that can beat us are ourselves. I felt that last week, even though Tampa's a great team. And so 7-3 there, as ugly as it was, to go into halftime, 7-3 is obviously better than throwing a freaking pick six and being down 10-7. So yeah, had a little conversation with myself. Might have had an assist from David Bakhtiari in the locker room and went back out there and played a little bit better.
Let's do this. We're going to step away, take a quick break, come back, wrap things up with Mike Clemens coming up right after this.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Find a way to win a football game, man. It's hard to win in this league, and so many different guys made an impact on that drive to put us in that situation for Mason to go out there and kick the field goal to win it. It's a team game, and our defense played really well. Our special teams flipped the field in many situations, and they came up big there at the end with the field goal.
Welcome back. A few more minutes to go before we get out of here today. Talking some Packers football. Mike Clemens on the line. And Mike, after the game, obviously you give credit to both. I mean, Bill Belichick for doing what he can to try to take away the strengths of the Green Bay Packers. Rodgers trying to overcome with Matt LaFleur. So you beat Bill Belichick. I don't know if this is a really good win and you feel good about it or you feel bad because it was Bailey Zappi and you had to go to overtime to kick a field goal to get him.
Well, I'll just say that, Zappi lived up to the moment, like some other young quarterbacks have in the last couple of years. The kid that the Washington team had there for a while. I I wasn't trying to go into this, but it came out the way. This was Belichick against Rodgers, and LaFleur was just over there trying to help out. I mean, there's an awful lot of bad coaching decisions or responses I think that the Packers made in response to what the Patriots were doing to them. And then, after the game, there's, Rodgers is there, and Belichick goes up to him and kind of gives him an embrace. And so Aaron was asked after the game, what did the coach have to say to you?
Nope. But cooler than that is before the game, he came over and we shared some words. It's nice to be able to have some private conversations from time to time. And he came over, we were throwing lines, and we had a nice embrace and shared some words back and forth. The truth is always the easiest to say. So the things I said about Bill last week, I meant, the way that he coaches and his success he's had. He's a phenomenal leader and always has his guys ready to play. That was some of the sentiments I'm sure that I echoed, and the rest I'll leave to some of the stray microphones that probably cut some of it.
Along those lines, does it mean something extra to beat them? I mean, this maybe the last thing ever facing, You guys are obviously two of the legends of what you do.
Yeah, it likely is the last time. So a lot of respect for Bill. Nice to beat him. That brings us to 2-1, although I played a lot in 06. But a lot of respect for Bill. He's a legend and deserves all the credit that he gets.
Also, Belichick, I mean, I thought he was kind of, because his guys played their hearts out. I thought he was kind of depressed after the game, more so than normal.
He is. It didn't look like a press conference. It looked more like a wake. He came in completely drained. He's wearing a full suit, and he goes up to the podium and was asked about, what did you think about this overtime loss at Lambeau Field?
That's in the end, Rodgers is just too good. He made some throws that only Rodgers can make. We had pretty good coverage on some of those, and he just, he's just too smart, too good, too accurate. And in the end, he got us. We couldn't quite do enough, in the other areas to quite offset it. Thought Bailey really competed well. But a lot of guys compete well. We just obviously came up a little bit short. And like I said, in the end, Aaron's he got us on too many things that thought we did a pretty good job on, but it was just for him to, take advantage of them or make a couple just great throws that couldn't quite cover. So back to work here this week and see if we can continue to build on the things that, some of the things that we've done, but we just need to obviously play better in some of the critical situations.
Mike, this is a weird week because they head off to London, right?
Thursday night. They're going to go after Thursday's practice and then try and get, in sync with the time there. The game is being on like 8:30 our time. And Giants, they're going to play the Giants, who kind of banged up after beating the Bears yesterday. Daniel Jones is feeling better today. Tyrod Taylor, though, is in the concussion protocol. Their wide receiver, Kenny Golladay, not looking good after the injuries he suffered yesterday. Packers had Adrian Amos go in for the concussion protocol. Other than that, I think they got out of this game pretty clean. So, yeah, it's all about a couple of quick practices and then getting over to England and trying to get in sync with the body clock so you're ready for Sunday morning's game against the New York Giants.
Good stuff, Michael. We will talk again later this week. Okay, pal?
Thank you, Bill.
Appreciate it, buddy. There you go. A lot of Badger talk today, a lot of Packers talk today. And the Brewers' magic number to get beaten and knocked out of the postseason is 1. That's not going in the right direction. So we'll get back at it again tomorrow. Good stuff today. Thanks to everybody for paying attention to us, not only listening to us throughout, but also for paying attention to us over on the Bud Light live stream. Really good one. They've got Kenny and Heilprin coming up, by the way. Kenny and Heilprin coming up. They're doing the special edition, the beginning of the new future of the Badger football program edition coming up as well. Right, Ben? Tonight?
I'm going to do it this afternoon. It'll be up around 4 o'clock.
Look for that on our podcast. Spotify, Apple, also on Google Podcasts. Until then, time for us to go.